Hello everyone, welcome to AccioJob's Frontend course. This is your instructor Jayesh, and in this video series we are going to be building the Netflix clone using HTML and CSS. This is going to be a very basic clone. If you don't know any concepts about JavaScript, or not really JavaScript, but because we are not going to be using JavaScript, if you have any doubts about the concepts in HTML or CSS, I'm going to help you out with that. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to explain everything right here. I'm going to go line by line. And I'm going to show you what we are going to be building. So this is the screen that I'm sharing right now. This is what we are going to be building in this course. As you can see, this has everything that proper Netflix site has. I've also opened Netflix on the site, the actual Netflix thing. As you can see, this is also in the exact same way. Right now, the video is playing on Netflix. We are not going to do the video. We're just going to have this image. Then I made this clone. Actually, this image was there. So yeah, we're going to be using this image. If you want to modify the thing, if you want to change the course or change the images or personalize your Netflix clone, you can do that. You're completely free to do that. But in this video, we're going to be following this, and this is how Netflix actually looks. So as you can see, the actual Netflix is also the exact same way. As you can see, this is scrollable, horizontally scrollable, and in our Netflix also, this is going to be horizontally scrollable. There are going to be multiple categories. For example, continue watching, watch it again, and top 10 TV shows, game gems for you, and there are multiple categories on the actual Netflix. We haven't actually created those categories because once you see how we are building it, how we are doing that, since we are going to be using best practices and everything, right? So what is going to happen in this is there is going to be a lot of copying and pasting of the code, because ideally in the industry what happens is we don't actually use exact HTML like HTML and CSS, but we use a bit of JavaScript. In this course, I'm not going to be using JavaScript a lot because of the normal reason, because it is going to make it a bit more complex. But what happens in the real world is we use a bit of JavaScript to just create a template once, and then we can use it later. But in this course, what we are going to do is we're just going to create this template and then copy and paste the code instead of using JavaScript to do that. But in case you know JavaScript, or you learn JavaScript, or you want to modify this code later, what you can do is you can also update your code after you've learned it, and then do that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create this 4 or 5 categories in my own code, and then if you want to increase this, if you want to increase any of these categories and add any of these, you can add them later, because mostly there are just 2 kinds of things. The first is this normal content row, and then this is the other content row with the numbers or the markings on it, which shows the rank, right? So we have created both of them here. As you can see, both of them are created here, so you can add more if you want, or you can just leave it to this. So this is basically how the clone is going to look like. Also, there is going to be this footer section. The actual footer section on Netflix is also there. This is going to look the exact same, and I've personalized it a bit. I've added my name here. You can also add your name here, so you can do this. And we also have this navbar section. As you can see, if you scroll, this actually animates in, the background actually animates in. So we are also going to be looking at that. We are going to look at CSS transitions. We are going to look at normal HTML, normal CSS, and this hover states and all. We are going to learn a lot about that. And this is the shadows part. As you can see, this is a bit darker. And at the bottom also, this is a bit darker. We're also going to show, or we are also going to see how we are creating these shadows in our actual clone, and how to scroll horizontally, and how to add all of these sections, how to add all of these images. We are going to use all the best practices in this, and you can see the code here. I've already added the code on my GitHub, so you'll be able to visit it. I can just go to GitHub and show you the code. So what we'll do is I'll just write Netflix clone here. This link will be provided to you. So yeah, this is the actual Netflix clone, and in the next videos, this video was just a brief overview to show what this project is going to be. In the next video, what we are going to do is we are going to take a look at the code overview and understand how it actually works, so that we can start building the project, right? So this was it for this video. This was it. I was just going to explain you how the website is going to look. So yeah, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the code that I've written, and how I'm going to teach you in this course, and what all structure we are going to be doing, and the basic the starting template of the code basically. So let's get started. As you can see on my screen, this is what we are going to be building. Also, you can see that this is a small icon. I missed this. We also are going to add this and learn how to add this, and also going to learn how the meta tags work. Not all of them, but yeah, basically the main ones of them, the starting. So yeah, let's get started. So as I already told you that we're going to be using all the best practices that we have, right? We are going to be using all the best practices in the industry to make this and to follow, and we are going to follow the proper style guidelines, the folder structure and everything like that. So if you want to build a project by yourself in the future, you can easily do that. So you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so let's get started with this. As you can see in my VS Code window, that I have a folder called assets and I have a folder called scripts. So like these are not really that important. And then I have a styles folder which is a bit important. Like actually this has all the styling that we're going to use. And then I have an index HTML. So firstly, I'll just explain what all of these folders do, and then we are going to also create them for our own project. I'm going to do a code along here, so you can code along with me if you want. Yeah, but first I'll just explain what they all do. Throughout this video course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the reference of this specific code that I've written, because obviously I can't remember obviously all the codes, all the values that are there. Since we are going to be authentic to Netflix, I'm going to use the actual values that Netflix uses. So because of that reason, I've already written them down. I'm going to just take reference of it, but don't worry, I'm going to explain every line of code I write, every line of code I copy or paste or anything like that. Okay, most I'm just going to write everything. So yeah, firstly we have this, since we are using industry standards and we are going to use the proper folder structure and all. This is the folder structure that I have created. Now, whenever you're developing software, the main difficulty is to create a code that everyone will be able to understand easily. Right? If you take a look at this folder structure right now, what do you understand? That assets folder might contain something that is being used as assets, that is being used as images or videos or something like that, because this is the convention, right? Whenever we want to add our images or any other type of media in our project, we use the assets folder. The next folder is the scripts folder. Now, why have I created this is because, like, obviously scripts mean JavaScript, so all the scripts that are going to be there in the page, as I told you in the previous video also, in case you want to modify this code or anything, we have already added a scripts folder for that. Also, we are going to be using a very small JavaScript here, like just only 10 lines of JavaScript. That is just because to show the animation of the navbar that you saw in the previous video. I'll show it to you again. If you scroll down, as you can see, this actually turns to black. This is the animation that is done by JavaScript. So this is it. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to explain it to you even if you don't know JavaScript. It's not going to be that difficult. So this is what the scripts folder has. The next folder is the styles folder. Styles folder contains all the styles. Now what I've done is, as I told you, I've used the best practices here. So I've divided this page into multiple components. And since I've divided this into multiple components, what is happening is each component gets its own style page, like own styling or own style sheet, right? Own CSS file. Why is that? Because like if I open any of these files, if you see, if I open this is barely like 75 lines. This is not even 100 lines. If I open this, you can see this will also be less than 100 lines, 55 lines. And any page I open, this is going to be less than 100 lines. Why is that? Because whenever our code reaches a certain value, for me it is 100 lines. Whenever it reaches after the 100 lines, it is difficult for me to understand. Now consider that we have all of the CSS in a single page. That will be difficult to understand, right? For example, I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 CSS files. So if I'm actually trying to if I'm visiting this code later and I'm trying to understand what I actually wrote here, or any other developer is trying to see what I wrote here, they are not going to be able to understand what I've written, because like a single file has a 600 lines of code and it can be difficult to debug later. So what I've done is, each component I've taken and I've just kept the styles for that component in that specific place, so that we can easily debug, so that everyone can easily understand what the code is for. As you can clearly see here, even if you haven't seen the code first, like any time, right? This is the first time that you're seeing the code, but still you will be able to understand why the styling is which component the styling is doing. Content row is doing the styling for a component called content row. Footer is doing it for the footer. Index is doing it for everyone. So index is basically the entry point of any application, right? So index.css has the style which everyone is going to use, and the main.css is the main section. Nav CSS is the navigation section. Top CSS is the top section, which is on the actual top part, right? So you can see this is the main section. This is the top section, and this is the main section. Everything that this is here, the actual content here, the main section. This is the nav bar, nav section, and this is the footer section. So as you can see easily, even if you haven't seen the code, you have just seen the output, you are able to understand where certain stylings might be located, right? So you can easily debug that. If you want to change anything, you will be able to easily change that. That is why I've like have multiple files for CSS. Ideally, what happens is we also create multiple files for HTML, but since this is just a beginner's course, this is a basic course, we are going to add all the HTML in a single file. But what I've done for you is, like I haven't done that, but I'll show you in the course that I'm going to close up everything and just show you what the components are. Okay, so that you are able to easily understand what the code is, and we are going to go through it in a similar manner. As you can see, this is the nav section, the main section, the footer section. So there are three sections to this page: the nav section, this section, the black section, the main section. This is the main section. This whole section is the main section, and this part is the footer section. So this is the bottom section, footer, right? So this was very easy, like the division of the page, so that we can easily understand that and easily uh, like scale it up in the future if you want. So this is how we have created this code, and that is why I've used semantic elements. What semantic elements are? Semantic elements in HTML, basically they describe what they actually do. So you don't have, like, I'm not writing div here because if this was a div, you won't be able to understand this properly, right? So instead of that, I use the nav tag. Nav tag means navigation tag. This is where the navigation is. So where is the navigation on the page? At the top. So this is basically, these are the best practices that we are using in our code, and I'm going to tell you why we are using everything, how is everything working, so that you are able to easily understand and move forward with the code, right? The next file is the readme.md file. You don't have to worry about this. This is just for the GitHub part, so that you know what actually this project is going to be about. As you can see here, this is the readme file, like just the starting of it. Since this is the Netflix part, and Netflix actually uses the custom font. So I've just written here what font we are going to be using. We are going to use the Open Sans font, which is the closest font I could find to Netflix Sans, which is not a free font, because like Netflix created its own font and like gatekeeps it. It doesn't let us use it. So that is why I've used the Open Sans font. That is the only difference between the Netflix website and our website. And you can see, you can barely notice it now, right? You can actually not even like barely notice it, because everything else is the exact same. Only there is a small difference of the font, right? So that is what we are going to be using. And there are two colors here: the background color and the text color. The background color is not exactly black, but a shade of black. As you can see, this is not exactly entirely black. There is some difference. As you can see, this is black and this is the background that we have. There is some difference between them, right? So that is what we are doing. And yeah, and the other part is the text color, basically white only. This is white color text. So this is the two CSS variables we are going to have. There are also variables in CSS. We are going to discuss about them as we move forward in the course. For now, we are going to just create the basic folder structure for our app, right? So as you can see, this part, I'll just move it here. So now, as you can see, it is going to be very simple. And here, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to cd into a folder. This is you can also start coding with me now. We are just creating the basic folder structure for you, so that we can start building the project in the next video. So I want this project to be in the projects folder and in the Accio projects folder. So I'm going to just create a new directory here. You can just do make directory. For Windows command it might be different, but I think it's make directory. Okay, so I'm going to make directory. I'm going to name it Netflix clone code, and I can cd into that directory. Cd means open that directory, and then I can just do code space dot. This will open it in VS Code, and then I can start to code. So firstly, what we are going to do is we are going to create the basic folder structure. We are going to add the assets folder. We are going to have the scripts folder. We are going to have the styles folder here, and we are finally going to have the index.html file. So we are going to have all of these. I've already explained what they all do. So for the assets part, what we are going to be doing is, I'm just going to copy and paste the assets, because these are just images and these are not actually code which I have to explain. So these are images, as you can see. This is the favicon logo. Favicon is basically anything that you see here. This is the favicon. You can change this to anything you want. By default, this is empty, so yeah, you really won't be able to see that. But these are the images, and the SVG part are just the 1, 2, and 3 part. As you can see, I can preview the SVG. This is because of an extension. This is, I think, the preview SVG extension. If you write SVG on the VS Code extensions part, you can see the SVG part or SVG preview. You can install both of them. This can help you code into SVGs if you want to in the future. But for this code, this is going to be enough. I'm just showing you that this is the output. This is what it looks like on the browser, and this is what we are like showing here. So I've just added all of them. We are directly going to use them in code because like normal image SRC wasn't working. So we are just going to copy this code directly in the code, but I've just added it for faster access. Okay, so these are the assets. I'm just going to copy this folder whole and just paste it here. You can also get this folder from my GitHub, the GitHub account. You can download it from there and you can add your assets here. So we have these assets here. So we have basically created our assets page. The next part we are going to be building is we are going to do the index.html page. So you can just do exclamation mark and tab, and this will write itself. And then we have to change the title. So let's see what the title is going to look like. The title is home dash Netflix. So here we are just going to change it to home dash Netflix, and we can write in the body hello world. Let's see what it looks like. We can just go live from the live server extension on VS Code. If we click on this, we can just go live and we can see hello world is written here. So you can see this is working. We have a basic HTML page, and we can also connect our CSS file. How to connect the CSS file? We can use the link tag with the href attribute as the actual style location, but we do not have a style right now. So I'm going to create a new file called index.css. Since this is the entry point for any application, this is just a convention to write index for the first file that we are going to do, right? So I've just created an index.css file. I'm going to link it here. I can just do /styles /index.css. I can give it the relation of style sheet, and this is the CSS file. So I can write the type as text/CSS, and we can just close it off. And if you want to check if the file is actually connected or not, what we can do is we can just edit the body here. For the body, we can give the margin of 0 and a padding of 0, and we can change the background color as red. So you can see that actually this is connected and all of our styles are being applied. I'm just going to remove the background color for now. And this is, since we have basically created the basic overview of the app, basic structure of the app, how it is going to look like. We have created the styles folder, the scripts folder, the assets folder. Even though there is nothing in the scripts folder, we are going to add that, so don't worry about that. So yeah, this is what we have done in this video, and I told you about the code that we are going to write. Actually, I'll just also show you the code for this part. Wait, I'll show you the code here. In the HTML part, this is the basic head tag that we have. Then we have the nav part. Now the nav part is also divided into multiple components, right? A single since I told you like this, the page is divided into components, and in the components also there are multiple components to make it easier. Now you can see this is the left part of the nav part, so we're divided into the left part. This is the left section, and we have a right section also where we just have the items. So we can see there is a right section. If you open up the left section, you can see there is going to be an image, which is this image. Then we have the browse part. Why is this? Okay, so this is not here right now, but also we are going to be making it completely responsive on the phone and everything. As you can see, if you like make the size of it smaller, if you make it to the like this is the phone part, this is the tablet part. If you see, this is the just browse here, right? This is in actual Netflix also. So I've done this here, and if you go here, or wait a second, if you go to the code, you can see that we have the browse part here, but it doesn't show on the screen right now. It only shows whenever the screen is smaller. As you can see, I've added the small class here. We are going to discuss what classes are, how we are adding them, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the code of how it is going to look like. The other part we have, as you can see, this is the UL basic list part. This is a list. All of these are just multiple types of options. So I've given them a class of nav items just to differentiate them from the other options. These are the nav items and these are navigation items. And then we have multiple nav items. A single nav item is this. So we have multiple nav items. You can create them into anything that you want, but I have created it in this way because I found it that like I was able to understand this better. That is why I created it in this way. So this is the left section. In the right section also we have nav icons. So this is a nav icon, right? The navigation icon. So this is a nav icon. I've just given it a class for separate styling. That is it. So we have the nav icon, and then we have every single element we have a nav item and an icon. So this is also a nav item. Also, it is an icon. So I've given it a class like that. If you are going to understand why I've why have I given these classes when I start to style everything. So yeah, for now we aren't going to worry about that, and I'm just going to close all of these. Also for the icons, what we're going to use is we are going to use this feather icons part. Here, if you go to this website feathericon.com, you will be able to see all of the icons that are here. You can visit these and you can see, like, if you want to use the search icon, you can just use the search icon normally, just write search and you'll be able to use that. I just show you how to use them whenever we start to code. Whenever we have to use them, you don't have to worry about them right now. I'm just telling you that it is going to be used in the course. So yeah, this is the nav section that we have. The next section we have is the main section. Now in the main section also there are multiple sections. We have the top sections, we have the content row, and we have multiple content rows, right? So as you can see, this single part, this is a content row. So this is a content and this is a row and this is scrollable. So I've just created a content row. Why have I done this? And content row column, why have I given it a column even though this is a row? This whole thing is a content row, right? So this title and then the content row is the whole thing. So that is why this is a column, and then inside of that there is going to be another div with all the data. As you can see, this is the title, and then we have the slider, which is actually scrollable. So this is actually another component. So as you can see, we have created this once, and I've just copied and pasted for the same exact data. Once we code it out, you will be able to see and understand how it is actually being done. So for now, what I've done is I've just shown you this scrollable part and this top part. Now let's talk about the top part. We have this top part. In this top part, there is a background image. So we add an image. We have a dark for left and a dark for bottom. As I told you, there is a left dark, and this is about the bottom is also dark, like it is fading away, right? So we created two divs for that and added the styling for that. And then we have this billboard part, which has all of this data, right? So this is how it is working. And then we also have this content row, which is inside of this top only. This is different from all of these rows because it is at the top of them, right? And it is here, and you will be able, like, you will actually see why I have done it like this. Also Netflix also does it like this. That was also a reason for me to do it, but actually this actually makes the styling way easier, and we are able to easily like make it happen and easily understand how the code works and actually do that. The next part we have is the footer part. In the footer also, you can see this is also I've created a column. The column is basically a thing that, like, multiple things are in line with each other. So I'm just giving them a class called column and then using it all over. You will be able to see, and you will be able to do that in your own projects later. But in this project, this is how I'm doing. If you want to copy this method, you can also do that. So this is a column. As you can see, this is one column, this is another column, and this is another column, right? So you can see there are multiple parts. Social icon, this is a row, social icons, as you can see. Then we have this footer links part. These are the footer links. Then we have this footer service part. As you can see, this is the service code. And then we have the footer copyright part. If you want, you can change this copyright to anything that you want. So this is how the code looks like, and this is what we are going to create in this whole course. I'm going to deep dive into everything, give you brief overview of every single line, and write it out in this whole course. If you want, you can also try doing it yourself. But yeah, this course is also going to be there for you if you actually get stuck somewhere or want to find out something, right? So this was it for this video. In this video, we just what we did was we saw how the code is working, we saw how the output looks like, and we basically created the basic boilerplate for our own project, right? So this was it for the video. In the next video, we are going to start with a nav bar. We are going to start with this, and we are going to code this JavaScript part. We are going to code this animation, and we're going to see how it looks like. Okay. And in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to be starting with this nav bar. So let's get into coding. But first, what I'm going to do is, since I already have this proper Netflix open, I'm just going to close this off. And the Netflix that we have created, that I have already created, I'm going to keep here for reference. And this is the Netflix that we actually have, right? So what is going to happen is, firstly, let's just go here. And for this nav part, we're going to create the nav bar first. So let's click here. Like in the previous video we saw, we're going to use the semantic parts. We're going to use the nav bar. This is actually the navigation part. And here in the navigation part, we have multiple sections again, right? We have this left part and this right part. So let's first create a div called left. And here let's create another part called right. So we created two different divs in this. And here we can see that we have, in the left part, we will have this brand part. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to add a class called brand. right? And here we can have this brand part, this image part. So this is an image, and I can have this SRC as the SRC for this image. What I'll do is I'll just go to inspect, and you can see this is the image that we already have in our assets. So we can go into assets, and we can see in the images we have the logo.png already with us. So what we'll do is we are just going to go to assets. You can do / and VS Code will autocomplete for you, and then just pressing enter. You go to images, and here we can go to logo.png. You can also add an alt tag in case the image is invisible for some reason, and we add the logo text here. So we have this logo, and then we have the nav items class. So that since there are multiple nav items, and we don't have to create this into a div, we can just make it an unordered list, and the navigation items are, let's give it a class called nav items, and here we can have multiple LIs with the class of nav dash item, and the first nav item is home. As you can see here, we can do home, and similarly we can copy and paste this line. We can write another line here. This is TV shows. We'll write TV shows, and similarly we can write all of these: movies, news, popular. I'm going to copy and paste since I've already written this down once, and it doesn't make sense to waste your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the nav icons part, or not the nav icons, actually the left part here. In the left part we have this nav items. I'm just going to copy this whole nav items part, because this is basically the same code that we already have written, right? So we are doing this. Also, as you observe there, we do not have a div for the image here for the logo, so I can just remove it here. This is up to you. If you want a div, you can have the div. If you don't want the div, because what happens in CSS, if you are trying to style it now, what will happen is you are going to style it like this. First, we have the brand, and inside of that, we are trying to modify the image. But if you have the like this in the class name brand directly here, what you can do is you can just modify it directly, right? So this is the change that is going to happen, but I'll just make it again. Like I'll just give it a class of brand here and remove this div so that it's easier for you to understand. It is a bit more consistent. So I have added these now. Okay, I've added them in right by mistake. So you can just copy this and you can add them in left. So I've added all of these in left part. If you see the output right now, it won't look anywhere as close to this. You can see like this is a very big image, and then we have the other items below this, right? So we have to fix this too. So don't worry about it right now, but yeah. The next part we are going to add in the right part. We are just going to add a div. As you can see here, it is the similar code in this part also not the div. This is also like, since this was a list, as you can see, this is another list. Similarly, these icons are also a list. This is a list of icons. So what we can do is we can add a class of nav icons here. As you can see, this is also like UL only, just like this was. So in the UL part, we can add a li. Li means list element. This is the list element that we're going to add. And in this list element, we're going to give it a class of nav item or nav icon. And yeah, nav icon for now is enough. So here we can add the icons. Now how to add the icons? We can just go to feather icons, and in feather icons we can just go to click on get started. This will open a GitHub link. You can scroll down, there will be a script tag for you to copy. You do not need it from NPM. So what we can do is we can just copy the script tag right here. If we copy the script tag here, we always copy the script tag below the body so that they load after the HTML. And there we also have to add this script SRC. So we can add this script SRC also down here. We have added our feather icons with this simple script tag. This was it. You do not have to do anything else. So now if you want to use any of these icons, if you want to use, for example, search icon here, I think the first one is search only, right? The first one is the search icon. So if I want to use the search icon, what I'll do is I'll just write search. You can see the name is search, and this GitHub part, how we use this is using the I tag. The I tag or the icon tag, you can use it right here. You can name it like this, I, with a class of, not the class, or actually the data feather attribute. We can give it a data dash feather attribute equal to search, and this should be visible on the screen now. If I try to go here and refresh the page, you can see this search icon is now visible. So this is how we can add icons to our project. If we want any other icon, for example, if I remove the search, if I want this icon, this is the activity icon. So what I have to do is I just have to rename this data feather part. I can rename this to activity. and you can see it is saved. And if I take a look at the output now, this is the activity icon, but we do not need that. We just need the search icon, and we just go to add the search icon. The next part would be to add this notifications icon. So I can again go to feather icon, add the notification icon. This is the bell icon. So how do I add the bell icon? I can just copy and paste this li here again. And instead of search, I can just write bell. This is very simple, right? We are just copying and pasting again. Since this is also a single component, we created a new component now and we added a bell. Let's see how it looks like. You can see that it looks perfect. The next part here in the output is the image, right? Now, where do we get this image from? This image is actually getting directly from Netflix. This image can be different for your own thing, so that is why I've just copied this from my own Netflix. You can go to your own Netflix or just copy this exact link. This will work. I just copied it from here right now, but you can copy it from my code or copy it from anywhere, wherever you want. So the next part, the next li would be another icon. This will be class of nav icon, and the nav icon will have an image with the source of the thing that I just copied, right? And this source, I do not need this. I do not need this also. Yes, so I've added the source, and I can add an alt tag here again. This is the user icon. If I close this off, you can see this image actually shows up on the screen. You can see we have this image. The next part obviously is to add this bottom icon also. This bottom icon now is known as chevron. Any icon that doesn't have a line here, the arrow, any arrow that doesn't have a line is known as a chevron icon. So if I write chevron here, also I'll increase the font size a bit so that it's clearly visible to you. I hope it's clearly visible now. I have the chevron icon. This is the chevron down icon. So I'll just go here. I'll just add another icon in this exact same way. I'll just copy this line, paste it here, change this data feather attribute to chevron down. Let's see what it looks like in the output. This is the output, right? So this is the output. As you can see, this is obviously looking like we expect it to look like this, and we just have to make the navbar. So basically, we have all the components that we need to create a navbar. Only the styling is left. Now I'm going to use I'm going to take reference of the original CSS that I've already written. Right, I've already written this down. So to use the exact values, exact colors, and everything like that, I'm going to take reference of the code that I've already written. But don't worry, I'm going to explain everything to you as you go. Obviously, since this is basically the same code that we have written here, so the components are obviously going to be the same. You can see we have the nav icons, icons here, and instead of the nav icon class, what I've created here is I've created a nav items class only and added an additional item here because this is also a nav item basically, and it makes sense, right? So we can modify our code according to this. We can write nav items item here. In the same way, I can again write nav item here. Again, nav item and another class called icon. So we have two classes. We have an icon class to show the icons, and we have a nav item class. This might make a very small difference. You don't actually have to even have to worry about this, but we have it in this way, and we have the search icon like this, and the nav item icon also in the exact same way like we have actually done it, right? So we have all of this, and we can close this off. Basically, this is what our navbar looks like, and we have created that in the HTML. Now we are going to just copy the CSS, like the styling from Netflix only. Now, whenever you are creating a clone like this, you have an advantage. What you can do is you can just basically go to the actual Netflix part, inspect on it, and see how it is being structured. Right? If I click on increase the size of the viewport, you can see how it is actually being structured. It is structured in the exact same way. And this is how I actually know how Netflix looks like, how Netflix does it, or how Netflix has all the styling and everything. This is how I actually checked it here. Right? So you can see this is what we have in the part, and this is what we have actually written in our HTML also. So yeah, let's get started with the CSS styling part now. Since this is a separate component and I told you that we are going to be using best practices, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another CSS file where we are going to have the CSS part for the navigation part. Now we also have to connect this part. We can just copy the other CSS that we have already written and just change the index.css to nav.css so the navigation part is connected. And let's see if it works or not. We can just take the nav part and change the background color to red. So to see if it actually has been corrected properly or not. And if you take a look at our output, you can see this is red, and this means that it is working fine, right? Now, first things first, we want all of this to be in a single line. So the main part would be to make it into a display of flex. We are going to use proper CSS styling here, like the display flex box and everything. So display flex is the easiest thing that we can do. We are using the display flex so that everything is aligned in a row. Like this is what display flex does. By default, the flex direction is row. You can also convert that into columns. So we are also going to explicitly give it the flex direction so that you are able to understand that it is a row. We have given it a display of flex and a flex direction of row. Now you will be able to see that this all is in a single line. The left part and the right part. Since this is the nav, right? This is the nav, the left part and the right part. Now, since we are going to be using this a lot, like aligning them into items, aligning items into a row or a column, what I can do is I can go to index.css and create another class here called row, give it a display of flex and a flex direction of column. Flex direction of row for a row, and for a column, what I can do is I can create another style. This is just my preference. I prefer to do it this way. You can also change it if you want. If you don't want this, you want to write flex direction row or column every time you are creating something. That is also fine. That is completely fine. There is nothing wrong with that. You can do that. I just prefer to do it this way. So I'll just write the flex direction of column here. So what we can do is we don't want this here. So we can just remove it from here, and the nav part I can give it a class of row because this is going to be a row, and the left part also should be a row. So I'll just give it a row as well. And the nav items right part, the nav items should also be a row because they are in a single row. Let's see what it looks like now. This is in a row and these are also in a row. And also you can see these are not in a row because I haven't added the row part here in the nav items part. This is the normal element. What I'll do is I'll add the row class here so that this is also in a single row. These styles are applied. These styles, as you saw, are going to be applied in every single component. We are going to use this style everywhere. That is why row is a pretty broad term, right? That is why I've created it in the index.css file instead of the nav.css file. That is the only reason. Now you can see these are also in a single line. Now we want to modify this. Let's first remove the dots here, the dots that are present by default on the list. How do we remove them? We don't even need the nav right now. We just need the nav items, right? So we select the nav items class. So these are the nav items part. If you see here, these are the nav items, right? As you can see, these are the nav items which are in a row. So I can give here the list style type of nav. If you do this, this will remove all of the dots that are present and it will properly align it like you want it to be. And you can see here, these are dots present in the icons also. So what we can do is we can do it for the icons and give it a list style type of none. So you can see this is also properly working. And in here, this part, this is not a row, right? So I can come here. In the icon part, I can give it a row here, so that this is also present in a row. Right. So what we need now is, since these are not present in a single line, like I want this to be in the center of it. This should be centered like Netflix. So Netflix X is here. This is in the center. So I want all of these to be in the center. I know this is a big image. We are going to resize this image later, but for now I want all of these part to be in the center of this. How can I do that? I just go to the row part before I can do that. I'll just go here. Since the left part is here, firstly I'm going to start with the left part. In the left part, only this part should be properly aligned first. So what I'm going to do is I can give it a since this is already display of flex, I can use this property called justify content. Justify content actually aligns the content in the main axis or the horizontal axis in this case, and the other axis, if you want to modify the other axis, the vertical axis, that is done using the align items property. So what we want is we want to align them like this. We want to align them like this so that they are in the center. We can use the align items property and we can write center here. You can see this is now centered. We want these to be centered among themselves also. So what we can do is in the nav items, we can add the same property, align items of center. And you can see these are automatically centered. If I want to align this to the center also, this is in the nav part. So I can go to the nav. I can give it a property of align items of center. And these will be properly centered, right? And I want to center this also, this part. So what I can do is in the icons also, I can do align items of center. These are also centered. And in this part, nav. or a single icon. Since we have a single icon here, this is a single icon. I want this to be aligned in the center also. So I can do a line icon center here also. This is also centered properly now. This part basically only the image and the icon. This is also centered properly. Now we want to, so that it properly looks good and it is visible on the screen, I'm going to just take a look at the exact dimension of the Netflix logo and then apply them here, and you're going to see how they are being applied in the actual Netflix part. You can see here now in the nav part, we don't actually need all this styling. We are going to take a look at the styling later. And in the left part, we have we already added this. As you can see, we did add this earlier also. I mean, in our code also, we have already added this line item center and display flex all provided by the row part. So we have already applied both of these properties. In the nav items also, we already have this property. We have applied these two properties, and I'm going to tell you about these two. You don't have to worry about them right now. In here also, we have done that, and there is the logo part. Wait a second. As you can see, yeah, this is the brand part. So this is the width of 100% and the height is auto, so that it is automatically applied. So what I'm going to do is add the brand here. Let's see what it is looking like. It looks proper now, right? This is perfect. And since we want to have this here, I'm just going to take a look at the other properties that we have. I'm just going to firstly copy all of these properties. I'm going to explain it to you later, like I mean after copying, obviously, so that you can firstly see what they do. I'm just going to remove this because we have already copied it, and you can see now what it is actually doing. It is giving us a padding and everything. So firstly, by default, we need to remove padding from every single element, padding and margin. So we can remove it from here. Firstly we add a margin because by default HTML applies some properties, like apply some padding and margin to every single element. We want to remove that and we want to have whatever we want, right? So I remove that. Now you can see we have a simple padding and everything. So I'll just tell you what all of these do. Position fix is not really needed right now. I'm going to explain it to you later, add that later. Width is going to be 100% of the screen. If I inspect this right now, you will be able to see that this width is as big as the screen I have, right? This width, as we continue increasing the screen, the size of this navigation part increases. This width is 100%, 100 dW that means. And then we have this display of flex. We do not need this, but as we already applied that alignment in the center that we had earlier. Justify content space between, just means there is space in between these elements. Since we are aligning them in the main axis, the axis that we have the flex direction, this is the row, so this is the main axis, we are aligning them here. So the space is in between these elements. This is the left part and this is the right part. So as you can see, left part is in the extreme left, right part is in the extreme right. And this is what we are doing. The padding here is VW. VW just means viewport width. This is relative to the viewport. 1.5% of the viewport. Right? This is 1.5% of the whole viewport width, the width of the output. So that is what the padding that we have applied is here. The font size is 1.2 VW. The font size is a bit bigger than the default font size. Default font size is 16 px, and by default, right now the 1.2 VW. Let's see the exact value for the font here. If you go to compute it, you can get the exact font size. You can see it is 9.216 because the screen size is smaller. If I increase the screen size, you can see the font size increases. It is 10 now. So this is what the font size is. It is relative to the screen again. That is why I have used these values. Z index also we do not need right now, and transition also we do not need. So we have basically this Netflix part. You can see this is local here, right? And let's go to the other parts. The brand part is also here. We have done that. Right. So we need here, what we need here is the margin and the gap part. In the nav items, if you go to the nav items, we have a gap of 20 px because we want space in between them, right? These are squished together, so we need space between them. We are going to give them 20 pixels of space. As you can see, 20 pixels of space is here, and we need a margin. What do we need a margin? Margin left, right? We need a margin left so that they are separated from the brand, basically separated from this image. That is why we have this margin left. The exact value is 2 VW. That is why I have taken a look there. So we have the 2 VW property here. So now you can see this is looking proper, like this is working properly. And in the nav icons part also, if you see here, this is a nav CSS. If you go to the HTML part, in the right part, we have the nav icons, right? In the icons also, we would have the same property of gap 20 pixels. since there should be some gap in between them. So in the nav icon also we are going to have a gap of 20 pixels. You can see this is also working properly, right? And yeah. So basically this is it. These are the styling that we have applied here. Let's see if we have missed anything or not. I'm just cross checking now. Style is done. Okay. We have added everything. We have everything here also. So this is basically perfect. This is what our navbar looks like right now. In a second, I've zoomed in a bit. That is why like it is going away from the screen. If I click on reset, you can see that this is perfect. There is no reason to worry about that. So like our screen is working perfectly. Let's see if there is anything that is wrong with this. You can see this is basically perfect now. This has 100% of the width. I just refresh this and it looks perfect. For a smaller screen. Right. So this is perfect. It was zoomed in a bit, that why it wasn't looking that good. If I change this to laptop or anything, this is working perfectly. Now the background right now is black. That is why we are not able to properly see that. But this is how it works. Right. This is the basic styling for the navbar. In the next video, what we are going to do is we are going to start and build this background, this image part, and we're going to learn about CSS variables. Ideally, like this part, every color that we're using, we aren't using colors right now, right? We are using the default colors, but whenever we are changing these colors, like from white or we want to change the background here, any color that we use, we are going to do through variables. So in the next video, we're going to learn about CSS variables and create this top section, the main section here. But in this video, what we did was we created this navbar. The navbar is looking exact same. We are also going to introduce the font in the next video. As we have this font here, this is this is the open sans font. I'm going to show you how to get the fonts, how to import them into CSS, and how to use them. This is going to be very easy. It is not going to be that complex. So yeah, what happened is there are some important things that were left in the initial video, which I'm going to actually add those now. Those things were CSS variables and the font color. I mean the different font, the open sans font. As you can see, the font here is different. If I just zoom in here, as you can see, the font here is different, and the CSS variables are not yet introduced. So I'm going to explain to you what CSS variables are, how are they used, and about the how to get the fonts. Right. So let's start with CSS variables first. Since this is by default the background color is white and the text color is black, but what I want in the code here is what I want in Netflix is the background color is kind of black and the text color here is white. So if I want to change that, how will I do that? I'll just go to the HTML here. I'll just close this off. Right, I have created that. I've created the right part. I've done this. Right. Now if I want to change the navbar color to firstly white, what I'll do is I'll go here. I'll change the color here to be white and I'll change the background here to be black. Right. And if I want to change this anywhere else, there will be a certain difference, right? And what if I decide to add multiple themes to this? For example, I want to add a light mode, I want to create a dark mode, I want to create another type of mode, for example, daylight mode or something like that, where the styling is a bit different. Like this is, instead of being black and white, I want to change this to be black, the color to be black and the background color to be white. I want this to be there, right? The default thing to be there. How am I supposed to do that? Like if I want to do this, I will have to go to the every single component and do that. I have to go to every single line, every single page, every single styling part where I have created and where I've used the simple styling and change that everywhere. But I cannot do that, right? So for that, there are some simple solutions that CSS has created. CSS also has variables just like any other language, just like JavaScript or Python or C++ or any other computer language. CSS also has variables. Variables are nothing but values that can be changed anytime we want. It can be changed one time, we can use them everywhere, and wherever we change that once, and it will be applied everywhere automatically. By default, what we are going to do is, by default, the body, what body has is, we can remove the margin and the padding here, and just we can add the background color as black, or not even black. We want the background color to be, what's the background color? Let me just see here. The background color is 2020, so we are going to use the RGB notation 2020. This is not exactly black, but a version of black, a bit lighter than black so that it is softer on the eyes. That is why Netflix uses that. This is the color that Netflix uses. That this is the color that we are using. But now you can see none of the text is visible either, since like that is black but that is not clearly visible. So for that we'll have to change the color here, and the color should be white, and the hex code for white is hashtag FFF, or you can do 6Fs, but this is fine only. And you can see this is white. But what if I want to change that sometime? That's going to take a lot of work. I'll have to change that here, and anywhere I'm using the same values, anywhere I'm using this value again, if I override this somewhere, this will have to be changed everywhere, right? So to modify that, there is something called the root element in CSS. The root element applies to every single element, like it is just present in the root of the CSS. It is present whenever you create a CSS file. Like there are some values by default in CSS. For example, the font size is 16 pixels in CSS, or the margin, there is something, there is some margin to every element, there is some padding to every element. All of that is present here in the root element, and you can modify that as whatever you want. So this is where we are going to create our variables. You can create variables anywhere. You can create variables in body also. You can create variables in your row part. But what I prefer to do is I just prefer to keep them at one place. I just prefer to keep them at the top. So this is where I'm creating the variables. I'm just going to create a variable called the background color, so that we know what the background color is, and the background color is this value. So I'm just going to copy this value from here, paste it here, and I want the text color value. I want a variable called text color, and I'll name it FFF. Also, this is the notation for adding CSS variables. We have to add 2 dashes before the name, and then I write the name in kebab cases, right? So I write it here. I can write anything I want here. What if I want to have the box color? So I want a variable called box color. I can name it like this, and I can write anything here. This value can contain anything from a number to a hex code of color. For example, I want this to be black, or I have a box size value. I want this to be a certain element. For example, I want this to be 2 rem. Rem is a value which uses the font size of the global part. If I change the font size here, by default 1 rem is 16 pixels, but I can change that here. If I change the font size to be 32 pixels, now 1 rem would be 32 pixels. So this is how rem works, but that is not the unit that we are using here. We are using the VW unit. So we can use VW. VW means viewport width. Viewport width depends on the relative width of the element. So that is what the box size is going to be. So any value can be held by this specific variable. Any value can be there in a CSS variable, and we can use it however we want. So we can first use that, and we can remove this part because we do not need any of these. Now, how do we use the CSS variables? Just like in any other language, if you are using JavaScript or any other language, if you have done any other languages before, you just declare a variable once and then use it everywhere you want. In a similar way in CSS also, you just declare a variable once. Variable is just a property which can be changed, right? Just like a constant is a value that should remain constant. Similarly, variable is a value that can be changed. So we can change this value here. And how do we use these values? We can use this value by using the var keyword in CSS. So we can have this var keyword here, and we can just add the variable name here. What was the variable name? What is the background color? The background color variable is just known as background color. You can rename this to anything if you want. You can rename this to anything, but this value should be the same as the value that you have added here. You can also remove this color part. You can remove the color part from it. These two values should be same, and that is how they are going to be used. Like, since this is the exact same name, if you see, the background color will still be black because these two names are same. If I change this to background color now, and I don't change this value remains anything, the background color won't be applied. Okay, so for here I'm just going to apply the background color value, and you can see the background color works, and the color, instead of having it to be hashtag FFF, I'm just going to rename it to the text color that we have created. So you can see this is how the text, this is how CSS variable works. The next part would be to introduce the font here. The font here, as I have written in the GitHub repository, that I have created, the font is not available to the public, so we are going to use the similar font called open source. Where do we get these fonts? We can get fonts from the font.google.com website or the Google Fonts website. Here you just have to write your font, whichever font you want. We want the open sans fonts. You can use any one of these fonts. There are thousands of fonts which you want, but we are going to use open sans. That is the closest to the Netflix sans font. I'm just going to write open sans here, and this pops up, and whatever kind of styles I need, I can just copy it from here. I just want this regular 400 part. I want this size. I will copy this, right? I can remove this. I already have some font by default, so I'm just going to remove them. Now I have added the regular 400 part, which means the font weight of 400 is there. I want a font weight of 500. I also want a font weight of 600. So this is the boldest that we are going to go. We do not want any other fonts right now. If you want, you can add or remove them in your CSS file only. In your CSS file also. So now, how do we add them in our CSS? We just add them through a link. You can just click on import here and just copy this part. If you copy this part and go to our code, you will be able to see that we can just copy the index.css because every component is going to use this style. So we can just copy this font here. Now you can see the font family name is here, the open sans font, and the weight here, 400, 500, 600. If I want to add 800, I can just write semicolon, add 800 here. If I want to add 300, I can add 300 like this. But I have to remember that the order of this number should be proper. Like 300 should come before 400 and not after it. Otherwise, it won't be properly added. So, but we only need 3 fonts, 400, 500, 600. So I'm just going to copy this. And if you like go here and refresh your page, you won't be able to see any difference because we haven't actually applied these stylings, right? To apply the styling, what we can do is we can go to Google Fonts again, and here we can see the CSS rules. We had to change the font family. Now we can copy this from here and we can add this to the HTML. Since you want the whole HTML document to follow the styling, so we can just copy and paste this line here in the HTML part. We can create the HTML tag, the styling for the HTML tag, because this is present in every HTML document. I want this here, and I can just copy paste in the font family. Now the font family that is going to be used is Open Sans or the sans serif. Sans serif fonts are those fonts which do not have the extra thing coming out of them. For example, the serif thing coming out of them. You can see the sans serif fonts. Serif, you will be able to see the difference if you go to the W3 part. W3 has a very small article which you can read to understand what CSS fonts are. You can see this is called serifs. The red things are called serifs. So if these are not there, the font is called sans serif, which means without serif. So these are the sans serif fonts and these are the serif fonts, and we want the serif font here. This is the sans serif font and there is a sans serif font in Netflix. So this is the font that we are using, right? So Open Sans is the font and this is a sans serif font. In case this is not available, this is the fallback font which CSS fallbacks on, right? So if I refresh this page now, you'll be able to see that styling is applied. Even if I didn't even have to refresh the page because of the live server extension, but if I refresh this page properly, you can see this font is applied. So this is how we can change our font and add the CSS variables. And this was the basic thing that we had to add. Now we can move forward, and in the next video what we are going to build is we are going to build this top section. This is going to be the biggest section of this is going to be the biggest video and the biggest section of the page because this is the most difficult part. After this we just would have the one video and just we'll copy paste everything and we can easily create all of these sections. So the most important part and the biggest part of this video, the most difficult part, is the next video where we are going to create this top section with this billboard and this image and all. Right, this is not going to be that difficult. I'll try to break it down for you guys and make it as easy as possible, but that is going to be the most difficult video. And in the next video, like basically we are going to create this top section. So this was it for this video. In this video we just discussed about CSS variables and we added a font, a custom font using Google Fonts. Okay, now in this video we are going to create the top section, which was actually the most important and the most difficult section there is, right? This top section, that is what we are going to create here. So we're going to start by basically first giving it the basic skeleton overview of it, and then we are going to move to the CSS part. But first, before I get into this, I need to tell you about two topics that are going to be really important in this, two CSS topics. The first topic is going to be Z-index. The second topic is going to be linear gradients. As you can see, this part, the black part, the black background there and the black background here, both of these are known as linear gradients, and like since they are on top of each other, these are using the Z-index property. So firstly, I'll explain about the Z-index, and then we can learn about the CSS gradients part, and then we'll move to the actual building of the project, right? So firstly, in our own project, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to like write anything right now, which is going to be important. I'm just explaining it to you, so you don't have to code along right now. What I'll do is I'll just create a div here with the class of box maybe, and I can have another div called div big box, and here I can have another div called feature. Right. So I have these three boxes. Now I want to position this on top of it. Firstly, let me just give the CSS here. I'll just give the CSS here. Since we are going to just delete it, I'm just showing it to you so that you can understand what z-index means and what linear gradient means. For linear gradient, I'm not going to show you an example. We're just going to code it out. I'm just going to show you URL where you can learn more about it and explain it to you a bit. But mostly, this is what we are going to be building now. What I'll do here is I'll just go to first I just create a box here with this actually go to display in the width of 10 pixels, height of 100 pixels, and the color of red. So let's keep this visible on the screen. I don't see it, so wait a second. Yeah, box, right? The box is div class of box. Okay, wait. Big box and a box. I'll just do a big dash box. I'll do the exact same values here. So this I'll just do 300 and 300 blue, and the BG here. For the BG, what I'll do is I'll just give it a background position of. So this is what I'm giving it. Let's see if it's visible on the screen. Wait a second, it is not visible on the screen for some reason. Let's just leave on this. We have a box and we have a big box. It should be visible ideally. Okay, so I've added the color and not the background color. That is the issue. So I'll just add the background color here instead of the color, background color, and same for this part, background color. Now if you see here, you can see both of these are like one below the other. Now what I want is, I want the big box to be at the back part and the small box, the red box, should be at the front of it. So for example, the red box should be here. If I am the screen, then the red box should be here, the blue box should be here, so that we can see one on top of each other. So what I'll do right now is, I'll just take this box, I'll give it a position of absolute, right, and give it a top of 0 and a left of 0. So this will position it relative to this part, and you can see like this is working as expected, right? And similarly, I also give the exact same position values to this part, right? So now you can see what is happening is, instead of it having position relative, like position absolute, it is on top of it, because what is happening is, here I created this big box after the box. So first thing I can do, give it a position of absolute and position it accordingly. But what if I want to give it a position of absolute to the big box also and the small box also? Now these are both in the same plane, right? These are in the same plane. I want to change their planes. I want the red box to come here, the blue box to come there, right? And what if I have another layer? For example, I have a text layer. I just call it class of text. I'm not going to change anything here, just giving the class. So now you can see that that is not even visible, right? If I want to make that visible, make that come in the first part, how I can do that? For that, z-index is used. Z-index is just used to create multiple planes, just like the z-axis we have. This is the, as you can see, the vertical line is the y-axis. This is the x-axis. The z-axis is this part. Basically, us like coming towards us from the screen, this is known as the z-axis. So this is where z-index property works, and for that the parent needs to be of the position of relative. We have already added relative here. I'm just going to close the nav part since we're done with that. We already have this relative. I gave the BG as relative. Now we can use z-index. Okay. So firstly, for the z-index of red, I need the z-index to be 1. Okay. And for the big box, what I'll do is I'll just give it a z-index of -1, so that it is in the background, whereas z part is in the front part. The red part is in the front, right? And now what if I want to have the text before all of them, before like anything that is here? I want this text to be in front of everything. So what I'll do is I'll just take this text and give it a z-index property of 2. Since -1 is the least on the back side of the screen, then comes 1 and then comes 2, right? So what I'll do is I'll just give it as an index property of 2. This is not visible on the screen for some reason. We have this text. Wait a second. Okay, so this has a position of static, so I will just give the position of relative only. So now you can see that this is on top, and then we have this field. If I increase the length of the text, you will be able to clearly see how it is working. Now you can see it is on top of both of them. If I want them to be in the middle of the red part, and if I want it to be sandwiched between the blue part and the red part, what I'll do is I'll just change the red index from 2 to 0, because 0 comes in between -1 and 1, and it should work properly. So I'll just make it 0. So now you can see the part, this part is written, the other part is visible, that whatever part is after the red part. After the red part, so before the red part, it is written. If I change the opacity here, opacity just means the transparency of it. If I change it to 0.5, you will be able to see it properly, right? So now you can see the whole text here. It is not proper, it is not opaque, so that is why it is clearly visible. Otherwise, it is between the layers. So this is how Z-index property works, okay? The next part is going to be the CSS gradient. That is going to be important in this section. As you can see, this part is known as gradient, and the gradient that we are going to use is this part. This part, the black part, the dark part that you can see, that is a gradient, and this part here, the fading out part, that is also known as a gradient. Since the image is proper, the image is not a gradient, we have to add CSS gradients by ourselves. That is what Netflix does. I just copied it from Netflix, so we are going to use the exact same values that Netflix has used. Okay, so gradients are basically this, and how we write them is like this. Wait. What I can do here is I have this output, right? And if I want to create a gradient here, instead of the big box at the back, instead of having the big box as blue in color, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gradient there. And how do we create a gradient? We give it a background image property of linear gradient. You can give multiple types of gradient. Linear gradient is the one that we are going to be discussing here. So I'm just going to show you the linear gradient property. The first property is where do we want the direction to be. For example, we want it to be on the right side, right? And what color do we want it to start from? We want it to start from white. And where do we want it to go to? We want it to go to transparent. Or wait, I just want it to go to red. So let's see what it looks like now. Wait a second, it is not working properly. Instead of right, let me just write 90 degrees. Yes. So instead of right, I can do center or from. Does it work with from? It works, yeah. So I can give here the angle or which direction I wanted to go to. The direction can be, wait a second, what are the direction properties? Let me just confirm. The direction here is top to bottom, okay. So I can change that top to bottom to be default, left to right, I can change that to right, okay. So instead of having just right, I just have to write to right in the direction. So that was the issue. So this is how the gradients are made. As you can see, this is going towards the right. It starts from red, it starts from white and goes to right. So if I wanted to go to transparent maybe, so you'll be able to see a fading out effect. You can see this effect is fading out now. It starts from it starts from white and goes to transparent, not starts from transparent. Right now you can see it starts from white and goes to transparent. That is why it is giving us such an effect. And if you see carefully here, this is the exact same thing that is happening. This starts from black or a grayish part, or the with some alpha value. Alpha value just means a bit of transparency. The opacity that we are going to change, it starts with a black with some opacity and goes to transparent here. As you can see, this is properly transparent, and in here this starts at the bottom, starts with the proper values, and as we go up it is transparent, right? So this is how it works. This is how we are going to use linear gradients here. And how are we going to use Z-index here? As you can see, this image is going to be in the background, and the part that we have here, the billboard that we are going to create, this is going to have Z-index of more than whatever our image has. So this is where we are going to use both of these properties that I just explained to you. So this is why these are important. Now let's get into the actual coding of the top part. So what we can do is, firstly I'll just remove all of the styling first that I have created and explained to you. I can remove all of this, and here what I'm going to do is I'm also going to remove this. Now what is happening is, this part is the main section. Like this was the nav section, now this is going to be the main section. So what I'll do is I'll just create a main part, and in this main part we have a div for top, which is going to be at the top, right? So this part could be the top part, and I'll just save this so that everything is visible, right? So it is the top part, and in this top part what I have is, firstly I will have this image, which is the background image. I'll just write the image tag here with the src of whatever this image is. So you can see if I actually I cannot do that right now. I'll just go here and just copy this image. As you can see, I have this image. I'm just adding this image with the SRC, whatever SRC this image is. I'm just adding it, and you can see the alt is the background image, because obviously this is a background image. I can add an alt tag. If you want, you can skip that. That is not really important because this image should always be there. Just in case it is not there, that is why we have the alt tag. We're given the class of VG image, which means the background image. This is how we're going to style it. And if you see here, you can see that it is not actually looking proper. Like, it starts not from the top. Firstly, that is an issue, and the next issue is that it doesn't take up the full width. So firstly, let's go here and see. If you scroll down here, the nav bar stays fixed to one position, right? So what we can do is, firstly, let's go to the nav part, and in the nav part, let's just give it a position of fixed, so that it is fixed at one place. Right? If I give it a position of fixed, now you can see what happens is it actually starts on the top, because it is now fixed. The plane of the image is different and it goes to the back part. So it is now at the back, and I want this image to take up the full width. So what I'll do is I'll create a new CSS file, because obviously we have different components and different components should have different CSS file. We have already discussed that. So I'm just going to create a new CSS file and give it a name of main.css. So I'm first connecting it here and adding the main.css file here. As you can see, I've added the main.css file, and in the background image part, what I'll do is I'll just access the background image here, and I'll give it a width of 100% so that it automatically fills up the whole space. Right? The width is 100% now, so the height is also 100%, but I don't want that. I'm just going to copy the exact values from Netflix only. So what is happening is the width for the top part would be 100%, and the height for this is limited to 56.5 or 25 VW. This is the exact value that Netflix uses. That is why we are using that. And what we want here is, let's just go to the reference so that we can understand that. We can go to the top part, not the main part. We are going to use the top.css because we are changing the top component here. Like, that was a mistake. I just fixed it. You can also rename the files here. I just renamed it to top here and rename the file here. And let's just see here. Right. So this is what we want, since the width is 100 VW and the position should be relative. And I want this to be in the background, so I'll just give it a position of absolute. So I'll go here, I'll give it a position of relative, since I want to use Z-index properties, right? So I'll just give it a position of absolute. I can give it a top of 0 and a left of 0. Right? Now you can see this works properly. And I want this to have a Z-index of -1, so that it is in the background. -1 just basically means background. So this is what I've given it. And you can see that this should be, instead of 100%, I can also write 100 VW. VW means viewport width. It is the exact same thing. So 100% also works. So I'm just going to give it that. Now you can see the images here. The next part would be to have this dark left and the dark bottom part, so that it is darker at the bottom also. So I'll just go here again, and I'll just go back here, go to the board, add a dark bottom, give class of inside of top only. I'll go here, I'll add a div with a class of dark dash bottom, and another class of dark slash, not bottom but left, dark left and dark bottom, so that this left part is dark and the bottom part is also dark. Right. So I'm going to again use the linear gradient property here that we just discussed about to actually create it. So I'll just go here, dark dash bottom. I'm just going to copy and paste the exact values from Netflix again. Again, I'll explain. The background part, linear gradient part, is something that we just discussed. So I'm going to have it here. And since I want this, wait a second. Since this also should be in the background, what I'll do is I'll just give it a Z-index again of -1. So let's see how it looks like. Wait, I'll give it a oh wait, I'll have to give it a proper position also, right? I'll give it a position of absolute. I'll give it a top of 0, a left of 0, and a bottom of 0, so that everything is properly aligned. And then I will give it a Z-index of -1. 1 should work. Yeah, -1. And I'm going to like push it on the right side. So the right side should also have a margin kind of. Since this is position absolute, margin won't work, so right is working. So I'm pushing it to the right here. it was by default, it is starting from the outside the screen. So when I give it a right part, this actually comes up here. So now you can see the right part is working properly. And these are the values that are exactly copied from Netflix. So I didn't really create them. I didn't really do hidden trial. I just went to Netflix and then inspect element and copied the element that was there. And maybe with a bit of hidden trial, I did this right part. This was also basically in Netflix only. I just tried to move it up and down, and I found out that it doesn't work. This is the only thing that works. If you want to actually see how it is working, as you can see, the black part is here only. So if I open this up, I inspect this, the dark. Wait, I just change the dark bottom part. This is the dark left part actually. So I just change it to dark left instead of dark bottom. It doesn't really make a difference, but since we have named it that way, I'm just going to change that. Now if I click on dark left, what is going to happen is I'm just going to show you if I change the right part, what happens. You can see if I am reducing this, this just keeps on going away. But if I increase this off, this changes. Actually, wait, this is 0 part. As you can see, the dark part is here. It's still here, but what I want is I want it to be 27% only, so that this part is lighter. I want this part to be lighter, so this right part, this part is a bit lighter. 27% part is lighter, only the 27% part. The rest 73% is the dark part. As you can see, this is the dark part. That is why it has a right of 27%. Okay, so we have done that. In the same way, we are going to add the dark bottom part. For the dark bottom part again, I need to copy these values. The background part again, this is a bit complex since these are multiple values and not just two. So it has 180 degrees. 180 degrees just means like this. Since by default it is like this, 180 degrees means it is turning into the opposite part. And we have the colors here, the first color, the second color, the third color, fourth color. Similarly, we have these colors. And what are these colors? These colors are just basically black with reducing intensity. Until we reach the top, the intensity is the lowest and it is basically transparent. Okay, so this is what the linear gradient is, and we have to give it a proper position here. As you can see, position is absolute, and we are starting it from let's give it a position of absolute first, and then we can give it a bottom of minus 30 px. As you can see, Netflix has also given it a margin, a bottom of minus 30 px. That is what we have given it. We want the width here to be 100%. It should take up all of the width, and we are also giving it a height. The height property is there so that we don't have to specify any top values, left values, right values, and anything like that. We just need a bottom value. Now you can see it starts from the bottom. And it goes up, and the width is only 30%. So it is just till here, 30% of the whole height. It is, I mean, not 30% of the whole height, 30 px basically starts from 30 px down there, right? So this is how it looks like. And what else we can give it? We can give it a Z index also. Since we want it to be in the background, we can give it a Z index of -1. Now you can see that this is in the background. This is working properly, and our left part is also working properly, and this part looks a lot like this part. Now this was not really difficult. I think this was easy to understand. I'll just recap this again in case you did not understand. What we did was we created a dark. Firstly, we had this image. Right? This image was simple. We gave it a position of absolute so that it is absolutely positioned. Gave it a full width and like created a top with a proper height that we wanted. Right. And after that, we created another div with the here we created another div with the name of dark bottom and dark left. Because dark bottom should be shown at the bottom part, left part should be shown at the left part. These both are the dark parts. Now you want this part to be lighter. So what we did was we created this left part, gave it a linear gradient, and then pushed it from here to here. So that this is the only width that it takes. That is why we had to give the right, because we had never given it a width, right? If you remove the right, we won't be able to see anything because there is no width by default of it, right? Because by default, div has 0 width. That is what is happening. That is why we had to give a right, and that is why it was showing it like that. Right. Now for the bottom part, we created it from the bottom again. We had multiple layers like this because we had created it in terms of 180 degrees because of the colors. I just copied the gradient from Netflix directly. So that is how they have created gradient. They have created the gradient, and to be to actually create it like Netflix to be authentic. That is why I just created copied the exact same value of the gradient. So that is just a color. You can kind of consider that like an image, because also in CSS also it is just the background image property. You can also write background image here. It won't make a difference. It is also kind of an image. That is why I can just copy the exact values. Okay, so I hope you were able to understand this properly. This is basically just creating a linear gradient so that it gives a nicer effect here, right? So this is what we did now. The next part would be to create this part, the billboard part. So what I will do here is I'll go here, create a new div with a class of billboard, and in this billboard, firstly we have this image. This part is an image. As you can see, this is an image that Netflix has provided us with. I've copied it from Netflix only. Right, you can inspect. You can also go there and inspect and get the image here. So this is the image that we are using. So after this image, firstly we will have this image. Actually, I'll just copy the link from there only. The code that I've already written, I'm just going to copy that. Since this is basically the same thing that we are doing, we get the image with the SRC. Right, the SRC is this image. This is the image SRC. I can copy this, paste it here. I already did it since I copied the normal thing, right? And the alt image tag, because we actually need the alt image. Like, why do I have the alt image? In case the image doesn't show up for some reason, in case Netflix CDN is down or something, the image is not available to us. That is when the alt image tag kicks in. So we have the alt image tag also. You can see this is here. What we'll do is we'll just reduce the size, move it here, and show that it is so that it is properly shown here. That is what we're going to do. The next part would be to add the title. Now you can see basically this part is the title part. This is another div. This is another div. If you want, you can convert this to an H1. For example, you can convert this to an H1 or an H2 or anything that you want. Since I want custom styling only, I don't want any pre-built styles. I'm just going to use the div with the class of title. And since title is a very broad term, it can be used in multiple locations, multiple components. I'm just going to write the styling for this inside of my index.css. Okay. So I add the title here, and after the title, I will also need the description. Description is also a very broad term. I'm going to add the styling for that also in index.css. So what is the description? This is the description. We're going to copy this description and paste it here. The next part is these buttons. So how can we get these buttons? This can also be considered into a div. And as you can see, this is a row, right? So what we have to do is we can give it a class of buttons in case you want to style the buttons, and this is a row, and we have already written the styling to the row, so I've added the row. After that, we need a button. So this is a button, and for the button we can give it a class of play button, play btn. So this is a play button, and this play button has a play icon. How can I get the icons? I just have to go to feather icons, right? Play here. I can get the play icon. Alright, so I have the play icon and the play text. So I can write an icon here with the data feather attribute as play, and then I can write play here. Similarly, for the more info part, I can just go to feather icons again to get the other icon for the info. I can write info here. This is the info icon. So I can create another button with the class of info button, and add the data feather attribute here, data feather attribute as info, and write more info, just like it is written in the actual output, right? So you can clearly see how it is working. So I have to style it properly now, style it so that it is just looking exactly like that, and then we'll be done with the top component. Ideally, this is also part of a top component, but we are going to create that later once we create the content row, which is going to be in the next video. Okay, so for now, we are just going to style this part, and then we'll be done with the top part. This is also positioned absolutely, and after this is being positioned absolutely, we are giving it a left of something and then top of something. So that is what we are doing. For the exact values, I'm just going to take the reference of it again. I'm just going to confirm if we have the same class values and everything, since we are doing that. We have title, we have description, we have the buttons, we have play button. Okay, we have another div. Why have I created this other div? Because what if I want to? This can be considered as we can give it a display of flex to the buttons, so that they are in a row, and then I can give it a gap, and since they are going to be two separate elements, they are going to be separated properly. Whereas in case of just text, this won't work properly. That is why I'm just giving it a div here just going to copy this div here. I have this div, so this is perfect, and this is how we have actually given everything. And here you might observe that we have given the FAFA play part, because here this is filled, right, and this isn't filled. Play button, if I show you here, this isn't filled. So to get the filled icon, what I've done is I've used another form of icon called font icon. So font awesome part. This is where you can get the icons, and it also has a CDN link. I'll just show you the icon here. If I write play here, you'll be able to see the play icon that I've used, and this is how I use it. In this exact same way, I've used this icon. So you can also use this if you want, but for now in this video, I'm just going to go ahead with this part. For this font awesome, you can just go here. How to connect to this font awesome part? You can just go to Google, type font awesome CDN. You can get the CDN link. You can go here, CDN link, copy this. You will have the script tag, and then you can start using it just like the feather icons, just by giving it a class attribute instead of data feather. But I'm not going to do that in this video or in this series. However, you can try it if you want. You can try to learn it and try to see how you can use multiple libraries. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to top.css part. We have this, and yeah. Next part is we have the billboard. As I told you, we're going to position it absolutely. We are going to give it a left part and a bottom part. Instead of a top part, we are positioning it from the bottom. That is also the same thing. We'll go here to our top.css. We are just going to paste it here, position absolute, left of 4% and bottom of 4%. Again, the width is going to be 36%. 36% of what? 36% of the parent. The parent here is the top part. So top is 100%. So 36% in total. Now this is actually positioned perfectly like we want it to be positioned here, as you can see, right? It is positioned perfectly. The next part would be to give the image a max width so that it doesn't actually exceed the width of the whole billboard and doesn't actually give us a bad experience. So I'm just going to write billboard here, and the image tag, the max width here should be 100%. Sometimes what happens is whenever you have a div, if an image exceeds that, it keeps exceeding that, and it doesn't actually limit itself. So you have to actually limit itself, tell it to actually take the maximum width that is possible to be 100%. Now if you take a look here, this is smaller, and this is the exact same height that you want it to be, right? This is exactly here. Now the next part would be to wait a second. Since I told you the title and description would be in the index.css, because they are basically very broad and they should be like shown there only. So that is what we are doing. I'm just going to give it a just copy the title and the description parts and paste them into index.css. Font weight is 700. 700 means bolder. Let's see if we have 700 here. Since we do not have 700, how are we going to add them? We're just going to write 700 like this. 700 semicolon and 700 in the link. This will import the 700 font weight and apply it there. The font size is 1.6 VW, which is a bit bigger than the usual font size. By default, the font size would be 1 VW, and margin is 1 VW and 0. So that 1 VW 0 means 1 VW on top and bottom and 0 on left and right. This is what we are doing. Now we can see if we inspect over it, we can see the margin here. The orange part is the margin. As you can see, we have added that, and the top and the bottom part is the margin there, and left and right is 0. So that is the shorthand for writing margin, top, bottom, right, left. Okay. Or if you want to write them properly, you can write top and then bottom is top. We move like this in the hierarchy. So first we go to top. This is the margin that we're doing. Then we do right. Then if you want to write all the margins in a single line, so first is the top part, then is the right part, then is the bottom part, and then is the left part. So this is how we can write that, but the short form for this is just writing it like this because top and bottom parts have the exact same value. So we can just write it like this, right? The next part would be to change the description styling. Description styling would also not be very complex. This is just 1.2 VW, a bit bigger than it normally is. That is why it is looking like perfect, like we want it to look like. The next part would be to style the buttons. Since buttons are a display of legs, since they should be in a row, we have already done that. Display of legs is done. We just need to add a gap here. Gap of how many pixels? I think 10 pixels. 10 pixels, and we have to give it a margin so that these are not sticking to it. And there is some white space. As in design, what happens is white space is important. White space makes page look good. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to go to top, go to buttons, we have already given it a display of flex. We can give it a gap of directly 10 pixels and a margin top of 1 rep or 1 VW. So you can see that this is perfect, right? The next part would be to actually style the button. I think button I have also styled. Right. So what is happening here is, since Netflix has multiple types of buttons, I just since button is also a proper tag only, I've tagged it. I have styled it properly in the index.css only. So I'm just going to actually I won't copy these values. I'll just show it to you how it's how I'm going to style a button. I'll just go here. So these are our classes. This is the class. This is the proper tag name styling. I'm going to do the tag names first and then the classes. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a firstly a border of 0 or border of none. Right, you can see the border is perfect. Actually, I can just, these are very easy properties only, so I don't have to write all of them. I'll show you. The border is none, so that there is no border. Displays flex inside of the button only. Inside of the button also, so that everything, the button part, the play icon and the actual text inside of it is displayed in a line, displayed in a row. So I can give it a display of flex. Padding is the top and bottom, again just like the just like here, the margin that we gave here. Similarly, we have the padding for top and bottom to be 0.75 VW and for left and right to be 1.5 VW. And then we have the border radius. Border radius is just the radius behind the borders. That is known as the border radius property. This part here, as you can see, and the font size is 1.22 pw. We have discussed the font size property multiple times. The font size is bold. Font weight is bold. This is basically 700. What bold does it? It just goes here, sees what the maximum value is and applies it here. So bold means the maximum value that we have in our font. Right, and gap should be 10 pixels. Obviously, a gap between these elements should be there. So that is the gap of 10 pixels. Align it at the center so that they are aligned along the vertical axis. Center, we have also already discussed this in the previous video. And the cursor should be pointed. This means, as you can see, this part, the black part is the cursor here. This part that just zoomed in, this part is the cursor, right? If you want to change this, you can see this change to pointer. This is how we can change that. We can just change the cursor property in CSS to pointer. And this is how it works. Now what I want here is, whenever I hover over this, this should be of a different color. The background color should change, and here also the background color should change. And the background color by default here is also different. So what I can do is I can just go to the top part. I can get access to the play button, and I can just change this value whenever I hover over it to be different. What is the background color that I want? I'll just take reference from the actual Netflix that we have created. This is the background color. These are the exact values. You can also copy paste these values if you want. This is basically white, a version of white, basically. So I'll just go here to my code that I've just written down. I'll hover over this. Let's see if it looks the same. As you can see, it is looking the exact same that I wanted to look, right? This is working properly. And in the more info part, I want to change the more info. So for the more info, I can just go to info button, change the background color, and similarly for the hover part also, I can change the info button hover. Hover is known as a pseudo selector. This is a pseudo selector. This can like trigger states, and we can actually write from states here. Multiple states are there: hover, active, or anything like that, right? There are also other properties called before and after, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but yeah, they are there. These are known as pseudo elements. Whenever we access a colon to access values inside of a button, inside of any HTML element or any HTML tag, these are known as pseudo elements. Pseudo elements aren't actually visible on the screen by default, but they are there and we can style them, right? They are triggered by states, or they are there but hidden, for example, before and after tags. So that is what these are. That is how you can do that. So I'm just going to copy the same styling. The color here is white. The color for this part would be white, and the background would be a bit different. And whenever I hover over this, the background should again change. So I'm just going to copy this here and paste it here. So we can see if I hover over this, the property is changing and the exact same like I've created it here. So now you can see the Netflix part that we actually are taking the reference from, and the Netflix that we have created have a lot in common, and everything is starting to take shape. It looks the exact same except this specific icon. If you change this icon, you will be able to exactly get that. It can be a good exercise for you. You can try to import font awesome and use that icon, or this icon is always going to be there for you if you use this icon. This is a bit simple. So yeah, in this video, what we did was we created this top part, we created the dark left part, the dark bottom part, this billboard part has an image, this part has a title and the description, and then we created the buttons. Now this part was the most important and the most difficult part in the whole of the Netflix clone. As you can see, we have created a very good part, like a very good chunk of it. And when I was actually copying it from Netflix, what was happening was it was not getting positioned properly. This left gradient, the bottom gradient, but I have simplified it for you so that you can understand it easier, like understand it in an easy way. I hope you were able to easily get that, quite like get the grasp of it and understand how it is working, how the linear gradient part is working, how the index is working, and how we have created all of this part. Right, so this is it for this video. In the next video we are going to create these content rows, and I told you, this content row will have the scrollable part and this title, and these two will be connected by a column. Right, so this is what we are going to be creating in the next video, this content row part. And yeah, now in this video we are going to be creating this the content row section, the row with the contents. We are going to create both of these parts, the SVG part and the normal part, and also we are going to position it properly, which is here, and then also all of these sections. Right. So let's start with this section, not the you might like section, but the continue watching with Jayesh section. Okay. So we are going to start with this, and then we are going to move ahead and add all the other sections. So firstly, this part is the easier part. We can close the top part right now, and the next part. Also, we can create this top part here, and we'll close the top part here. Now the div we want to create is the content row, right? And now since this has the title and the actual slider, this is going to be a column, right? So we can just, and we have already added the styles for the column. I mean flex direction of column, display flex direction of column in the text.css. So we can just type column here and it would automatically work. We can add a div class of title since we already have given the title styling also in index.css. So we can just try continue watching for whatever your name is. My name is Jayesh, so I'm just going to write it here. And the next part would be the slider. Now this slider, I'm not going to use display flex, but I'm going to use display of inline block. This is because Netflix has done that, and I want to actually slide them and actually have that effect. So what I'm going to do is in this slider part, I'm going to have multiple content here. Div class with a name of content, and in this content there is going to be all of these images. For now, I'm just going to have only one image. I'm just going to right click copy image, and I can have this src as this, and I'll add the alt as content for the whole. Right. So I have this. I'm adding this image. Right. So wait a second. Let's see what we have here. Now you can see that we have this image. We just want to create this in this form, the form that we already have. Right. So how do we do that? Firstly, we go to the content row. Since this is separate, to create the content dash row.css, so we can have it here also, content dash row.css. And in here what we can do is firstly we just do the content row part. I think there is some padding here, we have some padding here or margin here, so we are going to firstly do that. To get the exact values, we are going to go here in this case that I've already written down. So we can see the margin for top bottom is 0, and left right is, I mean top bottom is 3 rem, 3 vw, this is 3 vw, I mean this part and this part is 3 vw, and the padding is 0, 4%. 0 means top bottom is 0, padding is here 4%, and the gap for each element here, this element, this part, this gap is 0.5 vw. So I'm just going to copy these values and paste it here in the exact same way. Let's see if it looks proper. Let's see if it looks like this. Yeah, this is what we exactly want, and this is how it's looking. It is looking properly, like it is looking like we want it to look like, except the actual slider image part. Right. So how do we get to the slider image? Firstly, we do the content. Like I told you, this is going to be display of inline block. Since we want it to be inside of a block, the width to be 16 vw, so that it has a specific width. The width that Netflix actually uses, we have that width. We have added that width. The margin right, so that there is some space in here if we have multiple of these. What I'll do is firstly I'll add multiple content. I'll just add 4 for now. You can see I have these, but these are not working as expected. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to change the overflow of X with the slider, and I'll have to give the image again, since max width, like just like I told you in the previous video, sometimes image doesn't take up the width that I wanted to. Instead, it takes up the actual width. So I'm going to give it a max width of 100%. Right, so you can see the width is 100% now, and it is working properly. And also I want this to be a cursor of pointer. So what I'll do is I'll give it in the content only. This is fine. What happens is, why have I given it a content? Because what if I want to add multiple things here? What if I want to name it? What if I want to add the name in case the design changes for Netflix, or here I want to add the number, right? This is also the whole content. The single thing is a content. So that is why I've created it and not just actually added the image in the HTML properly. Like I can do this also instead of writing the div. But what I did was I added the div because it is easier and it is better for that, better for us to write. Also, I need to have some multiple things so that I can actually show you the slider part. I have added multiple of these. Now you can see that this being a display flex and display main block, it did not have enough space, so it just took itself into the next line. But what I wanted to be a slider and actually just go in a single row. So what I'll do in the slider part, I'll just give it a display of inline block. I'll give it a white space of no wrap, right? You can see, and overflow of X to be overflow of X not for the page, but the overflow of X of slider to be scrolled, so that it automatically scrolls just the slider and not the whole page. Now you can see the whole page is fine. The whole page doesn't overflow or do anything, but this part overflows and this part actually scrolls to the right. Now you can see this is working properly. This is perfect. This is what you wanted. So this is how we can create a content row, and it looks exactly like we want it to look like. Now these are multiple different shows and multiple different values. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these values. You can get your values from your Netflix, or you can copy these exact same values. Anything that you want. This is what we are doing. So I have this column part. I have exact same properties, so I'm just going to copy them from here. And instead of all of these with the same values, I'm just going to paste it here, right? So now you can see I have all of these different values, all of these different shows. So you can add your continue watching shows or anything, and you can create a content row like this. Now this is how we create a content row. I can add multiple of these rows. As you can see, I have this watch it again row. I can also have the watch it again row like this, like right here. With the it has the exact same styling. It has exact same the data. It has exact same structure and everything like that. Just the image is this link, this image link is different, and this title is different. That is the only thing that is different here. That is why I've just copied and pasted it. Now you can see if we take a look here, this has a separate one. This is another one, and also add the gems for you part. We'll move on to this part later, but for now I'll just add the last part also, and we'll just move on to that after this so that we can actually see this. And the first one now, I've also copy pasted the exact same thing so that you can see that they are the exact same. That is why I added that with the exact same data. As you can see, these are the same shows, but since there was a gap in between, you weren't able to, I think, tell between all of these. Like since this was a gap, so this was not really that prevalent. That is why I just copied and pasted the same thing. You can add any shows, any links, any images that you like, right? I will also add the first one now. I'll just show you how to position it, and then at the last part, we'll create the SVG part, SVG section. So we can go to the you might like section. In the top part only, in the top part, as you can see, we have the exact same thing. So firstly, I'll paste it below the top part. So you can see how it looks like. It looks the exact same. As you can see, it looks the exact same, but we want it to be here. And this is the top section. So if you want it to be in the top section, we can do one thing. We can just open the top section and just paste it below everything. We can close the billboard. We can paste it below the billboard so that it is available there. Now there is going to be one problem when I see the output. Like when I show you the output, what that is going to be is, since everything is positioned absolutely, technically the top part is not that big or doesn't have that many elements. So the content row that we added is going to be at the top. So we are going to have to give a padding for that. As you can see, this is at the top. We want it to be here. Now the exact value that Netflix uses and that I found out while hit and trial was 43% of padding. So what we have to do is, since this is a content row, we can go to the top section, and in the top section we can get access to the top section, and that inside the top section there is a content row, so we can get access to this content row right here and give it a padding top of 43%. Now you can see that it is in the exact position that we want it to be, right? It is here, except this part. This is the black part. This is something that we don't want. Now how are we going to fix this? We can just go here, take a look at the top CSS part. You can see the margin top should be 0. By default the margin top is 3 VW, so this is the margin that is that we are seeing here, right? And everything is positioned absolutely, so it was on the top. So if we give it a margin now, the margin would obviously overflow the page, overflow the top part. So this is above the top part. So what we have to do here is we have to give it a margin top of 0, so that there is no margin. This is proper, and we have the padding top of 43%, which is here. It is 43, right? Let me just confirm. Yeah, it is 43%. So this is the value. We have positioned this properly. We have this. We have the continue watching part. We have watch it again part, and we have the gems ready part. Now the only thing left in the content row part is the SVG part. The SVG part where we are adding the 1, 2, 3 and everything like that. So now we'll have to take a look at the code that I've already written, right? So that we can understand it properly. This was it. Now you can see the top 10 part. What is happening in the top 10 part is we have the content. The content thing is the exact same. There is just one thing that is new. The image is the same. The content is the same. But there are two things basically that are new. Firstly, this rank class name. The class name of rank. This is just so that we can actually style the ranks properly. And except that, we have the SVG here. All the SVGs that I have added here in the assets part for you, you can just copy all of these and just add it into the HTML, right? So I can just copy this. I'll just show you as an example. I'll just copy one of these, or actually I can just copy all of this only because it is basically the same thing. Copy and paste only. I just copy it here without any styling, obviously. As you can see, it is here. Everything has this part. For example, the rank 8 part, I have created the ID for SVG rank 7, rank 8. Every kind of rank is there. You just have to copy and paste the values for the slider, for the SVG first, and then we have this rank. So this is what we basically have. Mostly we had everything before. We already have the exact same thing here with the content and the image. The only thing that is changing here is the rank. We are adding the rank and the SVG. Right, so this is what is being changed, and if you see the output right now, this is what we can see. We have the SVGs as the big SVGs, and the images are not the proper ones, right? So what we have to do right now is we have to actually get those styling. We have to do the proper styling for them so that they can easily be seen by us and easily have the proper value that Netflix has. So to get the Netflix values, to get the authentic values, I'll have to take the reference of it. So I'll just go here. Not the top part now. We just need this. Right, in the rank part, firstly we have a specific height here. If you see here, we have a specific height. This is 150px, so we have to give it a specific height, right? Just go here. We can give it a height of 150px. And what is happening here is this can be given a position of absolute. This can be given a position of since this will be given a position of absolute and top values and bottom values, we want it to be positioned relative to this content only, to this single content, not to the whole page. So for that, what we have to do is we have to give this rank a position of relative instead of having a position of static, because of which what will happen is this will get positioned absolutely to the page instead of our own component. So since we have the proper rank now, what we can do is we can go to the rank SVG part. I'll just copy this for you and paste it here so that you can understand that. Just as I told you, we have to give it a position of absolute here. We have a top of 0, left of 0, so that it is positioned on the absolute left part. The right is auto, so that it is automatically placed. You can even remove that. You don't even need this. You don't need both of these properties, and we have the width as 50%. 50% width means it takes up 50% of the whole content. 50% of this whole content, as you can see, 50% of the whole content is being taken, right? The whole content is this much, this big, and 50% of it is being taken. Now we have to do the images properly so that the images are positioned properly, images are shown properly. For that, we have to copy the images styling. Again, we are positioning the images absolutely, giving them a left, bottom, top, left, top, right, bottom, and left of 0. Except the left should be auto because we are positioning it away from the left. The right is 0, the left is auto, automatically positioned. We have to position the image here, the SVG here. That is why SVG has the right of auto. That means this part will be automatically positioned for the image, and for the content that we have, this part will be automatically done. That is the left part. Okay, so that we have given it a left of auto. The width again is 50%. Since 50% of the width is given to the SVG, 50% would be given to the image. Height is 100%, obviously, because so that it doesn't actually exceed the height of 150 px, since it was already exceeding the height earlier, right? As you can see, if I remove this will try and exceed the height. Okay, it doesn't. Yeah, so as you can see, this is trying to scroll here. This is exceeding the height, so I can give it a height of 100%. Background size is covered, and object fit is covered, so that it automatically covered. I just coming out to show you. Actually, there is not a lot of difference, but yeah, if I do it like this, these are not actually. If the image aspect ratio wasn't perfect, like in this case it is perfect because I got it from Netflix, but in case even Netflix doesn't have a perfect aspect ratio, what like the background size cover and object fit cover does is it automatically positions it inside of that specific part, even if the aspect ratio is not alright. It will make it alright and it will position it in the center only. It will position it perfectly. That is why we have both of these properties. I've copied these from Netflix, so yeah, it is better to have these. And now you can see in our thing, in our code, that the SVG part is also properly aligned. We have all of these SVGs, we have all of these images, and it is working properly. All of these values have been taken from Netflix. That is why they are authentic and actually what Netflix uses. So basically, this is what Netflix has, and I think our Netflix clone is starting to take shape. We are mostly done with that. We are only left with the footer part, making it responsive, and the JavaScript we have to add. Right. So in this video, we created this content row, created all of these content rows, added multiple data. I just showed you. We just have to copy and paste and change the data there. So we did that. We added this SVG part, and then we positioned it properly in the top section. Now the last part left to make this website is the footer section. This is the footer section. So as I told you in the initial video also how it is structured, we're going to code it now. And we're going to add the CSS styling. To add the CSS styling, I have to take reference of the code that I've already written, because that is the exact values of how Netflix uses that. So yeah, we're going to do that. Firstly, let's go here and let's add another CSS file for footer. So we'll add a footer.css file, and also I'll link this file. We are done with the main part, so I'm closing the main part, adding another CSS file called the footer.css file. Now I'll add a footer, and this footer part, the first section we have is the social icons. And if you remember in the last video, the previous few videos, or the previous video, the video about the top section, I told you about this section, like this button, right? How to get this button? You can get this button through font or some CDN. So the feather icon do not have any social icons. To get the social icons, we are going to use the font awesome API only. This part, these icons. So we are going to use font awesome for that only. So I'm going to show you how to actually use font awesome in your own code if you haven't already done that, right? So we are going to use these icons. Now we have these icons here. So for every icon, what I'm going to have it, I'm going to have a social dash icon class. This is going to be an icon only, since I showed you how they are done. So these are 4 icons. So I'm just adding 4 icons here. Right now nothing is visible because there are no icons, because we haven't added font also. But yeah, there are 4 icons, and then we have the footer links. Right, this part would be the footer links. Now what is going to happen here is these are all going to be links. We can have an a href and anything in the href that you want for now, because we aren't creating any more pages. So you can have hashtag just goes back to the same page, or you can have slash also goes back to the same page, and you can add a value here called audio description or something. Description. This is what I'm adding. So you can have multiple links like this, right? After that, you can have a service code part. So what we can do is we can do div class name of footer dash service, and then we can have another div with the content of div class of service code, and also I can have service code text here because we have a service code text here, this part here, right? And then we have the copyright, so we can have a div class of footer dash copy, right? Let me just spell it properly. Copyright okay. So we can have it here. So we have the footer copyright, and we can write anything here. If you want to use certain symbols in HTML, we can use it like this. For example, if you want to get the copy icon, what I can write is I can write copy, and this will give me the copy icon. I can write Netflix Inc. And if you want, you can add your name. I'm writing made by me. You can add your name. So I'm adding that only. So if you see in the output, you won't be able to see a lot of things. You just have the same links only. But what I want is I want all of these links. So what I'll do is, since the code is the exact same, I'm just going to copy this with the dynamic data. You can also do that. You can also copy the dynamic data that I already have from my code, or you can write all of these by yourself. I gave them a class of footer link, gave them proper audios, the proper text that we have, all the different text that we have. So now if you see that we have different links. And in the links part, as you can see, this is like in the gray color, and whenever I hover over this doesn't actually, this only shows the underline at that time, right? And this is in the anchor tags. So, and anchor tags are global to every component. So I'm going to add the styling in the, what do you call this part, in the index.css. And for the A part, what I want is, I want the firstly the color to be gray. You can create a CSS variable for this, but since this is only one color, I'm just creating or writing gray here, and I can have a text decoration of none. And whenever I hover over this, I want a text decoration of underline to be there. So we can see if I hover over them, this is giving me the exact same effect that I want here. So what I can do here is I can go back, and in the footer.css part, I can have a footer firstly. First, the footer should be with a class of column only, because all of this is in a column. Social items are in a row, so I'll add a row. Footer links are also in a row, but they have a specific property. So what I'll do is I'll have footer links, and the special property they have is so that they are not in a single line but spread among themselves. It is a flex wrap of wrap. So they automatically go to the next line if it is not if there is no space in the current one. Since there is space here right now, so it is not going to the next line. Also, I want there to be a gap maybe of 10 pixels for now. Right, so you can see these are different now. But now there is another thing. What I want is I want the footer to take up a specific amount of space. For that, I'll just take reference here. And for the footer part, I want like all of these properties. Basically, the width should be 980px only. The margin is auto. Margin auto means automatically align them from here to here, so it is automatically in the center. And the padding is 0. Obviously, top bottom is 0. 4% is 4% on the left side, 4% on the right side. The gap is 1 VW. Every element there has a gap of 1 VW. Margin is automatically. The color is gray for any text that is there on the screen. Right. Now you can see for the these footer links are also getting proper now. And before that, I'll just add the font awesome CDN only. We just go to Google, we write font awesome CDN. We can go to this website, the first website, copy this link, and we can go to HTML. Below all of this, we can add another script tag with the SRC of this link that we have. We have automatically gave us the link, so we don't have to add the SRC. We can just copy it here. It automatically, this is a link sheet, right? It's not a script, but this is a link, so we can add it on top only. So we have font awesome now, and how do we add the classes? I mean, how do we add everything? We can just go here. Let's see what the icons that we want are: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So we just check here, Facebook. We want this icon. So how do we add it in HTML? We add it like this: class of FA brands, FA Facebook. So we can just go here before the class of social icons, because this is the class that we want. So I'm going to write FA brands and FA hash Facebook. So if I take a look at the output now, you can see the Facebook icon is here, just like it is here, but it is a bit different. So let me just check if there is another icon for Facebook. Okay, this icon, Facebook FA Facebook dash F. This is the icon that we want. So this is what I'm going to write here, FA Facebook dash F. Let's see how it looks like now. So this is what it looks like now. And for all the social icons, what I want is, firstly I'll just close this index off, and for the social icons, social dash icons, going to move them up here. And for social icons, I want the color to be white firstly. So now you can see that this should be white, right? The next part is Instagram. I think this will be pretty similar only. So I'll just write Instagram here, Instagram, and I can remove the F. You can see Instagram is also here. And similarly, I can add the others. I'll just copy and paste. You can also do that if you want. So this is the exact thing. I'm just copying and pasting the data here. I have all of the data, and now you can see all of them are here. Wait a second. And brands, I think I have to add. FA brands, I think font also has changed a bit since I last used it. That I have to add the brands now. So you can see all of the brands are now here, but these are differently styled here. I mean, these are differently styled in Netflix, so we have to style them differently again. I can also write F because we need the F logo from Facebook. How do we style them? We go to footer. We go to, firstly they have a gap of 15 pixels, so I can go here, give them a gap of 15 pixels so that they have some space between them, some breathing room. For the social icon, they have a scale. Scale just means they can increase the size by 1.5. I mean 1.5 times the normal size for each icon, and for the font size is smaller. That is not included anything. So this is smaller, and if I increase this, this will increase. So you can see this is looking the same. 1VW is fine. We don't even need the scale 1.5. Yeah, we do. So we have the scale, we have the font size, everything is working fine. This is perfect, right? We have all of these logos, we have everything that we need. Also, we can change the play icon now. Since we already are here, I'm going to just go to the index HTML part, go to the nav part, and the right part in the buttons. Not here, not in the nav part basically, but in the main part I have that in the billboard. And in the billboard I have this play button, and instead of data feather play, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add an I tag with a class of FA dash play. I think this should be fine. Let's just go here and write play. I don't actually remember what it was. We'll just search for play. This is the play icon. F is solid, F is play. Right. So we just have to write F dash solid. Now this should be here, hopefully. Yeah. So you can see the exact icon that we want from Netflix is here. And this is working perfectly. We have all of these. Now let's just take a look at these social links part, social links styling. We can have the footer links, right? And we can again check the footer links if we have mistakes them. Okay, so we have a margin, we have a line item, and display flex. So display flex is already provided because we gave it a display of row that we have in HTML that we have created. So we can copy all of these parts so that the font size is smaller and there is some gap and everything. So we can copy this here. Is there a gap in the footer links? Oh, this is in the footer links, and every single link every single link will have a flex basis, which means it will take up 25% of the whole part. 25%, 25%. That is what it actually wants. So 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. So it is taking up, each of them is taking up 25% of space, and that is why we have them in 4 different columns. So that is what we are doing. This takes up 25% of the space. This takes up 25% of the space till here. This takes up 25. This takes up 25. In total, they make up 100. So that is how we have the flex basis part working. And margin bottom for each of them is 15 pixels. Now the service code that we want, let's just copy the style for the service code first. Now the service code that we want here is this part, or width. We want the width to be fit content, so that it automatically fits into the content, right? And here what we have is, we have the background should be transparent. We can even remove this property because it is transparent by default only. Then we have a border of unpaid solid gray. As you can see, there is some border here. And then we have a font size of 13 pixels, so that it is smaller. We have zero margin, so that there is no margin. By default it is 0, so we can remove that. Again, you can see zero margin. Padding is 0.5. The space between the border and the actual content is known as padding, so that padding has increased. Width is equal to fit content, which means the content that is inside the div, and that is just the text. So it is equal to the text, equal to the length of the text. That is the length of the div, and that is why this box is being created, right? After that, what we want is, we can have a hover part. Okay, wait, what is happening here? Can you hover? Okay, so nothing happens. So yeah, we can skip this part. We do not even need this hover part. And for the copyright part, this is a bit smaller and it has a volume bottom. That is why we are just adding this property. Now you can see this is smaller, and this looks exactly like we wanted to look like. This looks like the footer that we wanted to look like, and it is exactly like the Netflix footer. So you can see in this video we created this footer. We have basically are done with the whole thing. The only thing left is the Netflix part. If you scroll down over it, this should actually turn into black like this. And the next part would be to make it responsive for smaller devices. Otherwise, we are done with the Netflix clone. As you can see, it looks pretty good. We mostly have everything here. Even this icon is perfect. All of the social icon is also perfect. You can also change that if you want. You can modify what you want. But this is it for this video. In the next video, we'll try to make the JavaScript part for this. That's going to be a very small video, very small basic JavaScript we are going to build, so that it turns black whenever we scroll over. Okay. The only thing left now is making it responsive and actually adding the black color here whenever we hover over this, right? So for this, we are going to basically use JavaScript, and it is going to be really easy JavaScript. Firstly, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to help you make this at the top firstly. So firstly, what we want is, we just go to the nav.css here. Since we already have created everything, we can do this main, we can do the footer, and we only have the nav part, right? We obviously already have the nav.css file. So firstly, we have to give it a z index. So we can give it a z index of 100, so that it is over everything. As you can see, this is on the top of this image, on top of everything that we have. So it is on top of everything that we already created, right? Now let's just make another class called nav dark, and just give the background color of black, right? Now how do we apply it here? How do we apply it to this part? To apply it here, what we can do is, we can go to index.html. We can open this nav part, and or not even open it, we can just give it the class here and write nav-dark here, right? Now you can see it has the dark class. It is having a black background. Now what we are going to do is, we are just going to do this through JavaScript. We can do this through JavaScript very simply. Firstly, we'll have to go to scripts and create a new file. I'm just going to name it nav.js, because .js is the extension to create a JavaScript file. And if I want to connect it to HTML, how I can do that is, I can do that with the script tag. I can do script src. What is the src? I can do /scripts and then nav.js. Okay. So I've connected nav.js. To verify if it works, I can just console.log hi here. This will print hi to the console. Console is the part that we have here. If you click here, this is the console. You can even see it on bottom here. You might not have this, so just click here if you have it. So you can see hi here. This means the nav.js is properly connected and it is working. We can code here now. We can code in JavaScript now. So firstly, to actually get the element, if you want to add the nav.class to our navigation bar or our nav element in HTML, what we want to do is firstly we have to get access to that, right? Firstly, we need to know what that element is. So I'm going to store that here. I'm just going to create a variable called nav, and I'm going to get this from the document or from the page. How do I get that from the document? I just write document dot get element by class name, because not get element by tag name, because I wanted to get by tag name. This is a tag, right? This part is known as a tag. Anything that we write inside of angle brackets is known as a tag. So I'm getting it by the tag name. I get it by the tag name. What is the tag name? I can pass it in the arguments as nav. So I just got the nav argument, the nav element in JavaScript. Now I have access to this specific element in JavaScript, right? Now if I want to add it here, I can write nav dot class list, or actually since get elements, as you can see, this is get elements by class name. This actually returns an array. Array means a list of objects, and I want to get the first of them, okay? Because it is also, like, obviously it is going to return a list, but the list is going to have an element. So I just want to get access to the first element. I got access to the first element. Now what I can do is I can do nav dot class list dot add. This means I'm going to add to the class. What I'm going to add to the class is nav dark. Now if I save this, you will be able to see the black part even when we did not add it in the HTML. As you can see, the HTML doesn't have that, but because of JavaScript, we actually added it here, right? So now we can use this JavaScript to actually get the scroll position of the page. Like whenever we scroll, we get this access. Our browser emits an event. Emitting an event just means it tells us, or tells the computer, or tells JavaScript what is actually happening. That the page is actually scrolling, right? So we get the access to that event. Now we can write it here. We can write window. Window means the actual page. Window dot add event listener, which means we want to listen to an event. We want to listen so that whenever the page tells us something, we can actually listen to that. So we are listening to the scroll event. Whenever our page scrolls, we are listening to that, and we can call a function here, right? Whenever we call a function, you can see the exact function that I've written here also. This is the exact same function. So what I'm doing here is I'm just checking if the window dot scroll by, that means if it has been scrolled by more than 10 pixels or more than 10 units of the screen. If it has been scrolled by more than that, what I want is I want to add this class. And if it is not done, if it is not actually scrolled that much, if it scrolls back, I want to remove that class. So what I'll do is I'll just add nav.classlist.remove nav. I'll just remove it whenever it is not there and add it when it is there. So this is a very simple JavaScript, only 10 lines of JavaScript that I've done. So as now you can see, if I scroll down, you can see this automatically comes up, right? This comes and goes. Whenever I scroll down, it comes. Whenever I scroll up more than 10 pixels, it goes. Right? You can also change this value. You can tweak it to whatever you want. You can tweak it to 30 if you want. You will have to scroll a bit more. So that is what you can do. Right? But the only difference from this part and this part that we have created is this happens suddenly, right? As you can see, this is pretty sudden. Like this is not there, now this is there. But in here, what happens is it actually fades in. It has some effect, it has some transition. That is the effect, right? Now, how do we add this effect? We can add this effect through CSS. We have to just go to CSS, nav.css, and in the nav part, I have to add a transition property. Transition just means whenever we are moving from one property to another. For example, if we are moving from background color of transparent to background color of black, there should be some transition. So transition takes up multiple things. So for that, firstly, we need to write which property do we want it to happen on. We want it to happen on all properties, so we can just write all because only one property is there. So we don't actually have to worry about anything. We can just write all directly, or if you want, you can also write background color here specifically, background color. But all is better, so I just prefer to write all. And then we can write how many, like what is the time that I wanted to take. I wanted to take 0.2 seconds or 200 milliseconds, whatever you want, you can write here. And if you see now, if I scroll over this is the page that we just created. If I scroll now, you can see this, it is, yeah. So now you can see it is automatically showing it with an animation, but it is not very prevalent. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the time. Go here, I'll just go here, refresh this page and scroll again. Now you can see the animation is clearly visible, right? This is how the CSS transition works. And this is how with 10 lines of JavaScript, we are easily able to add this animation. whenever we scroll over our page, and this is how you can add that in any one of your projects. So this is the only line it takes. I'll just recap whatever we did. Firstly, we got access to this element in JavaScript, access to this nav component, right? We can go there and we got access to this nav component. Then we listen to the scroll event. For example, whenever the window scrolls, we just listen to this and we check if we scroll more than 10 pixels, if we scroll more than 10 units of in the screen, we actually add this class name. The class name that we have added, we add that class name to our nav part. Or if it is not more than 10 pixels or not more than 10 units, we remove that class. So it is going away and it is coming as we scroll. So this is how we do scroll animations in JavaScript and CSS. Okay. So this was it for this video. I hope you were able to understand how we can add the scrolling thing. Now the only thing left is to make it better when the screen is smaller. For example, if you are on a tablet, it should look better than what it is looking right now. It should look like this. So this is what we want to do, so that it is clearly visible on smaller screens and it is good for the phone and the other devices or the smaller devices. So how do we do that is we do this using media queries. Now what are media queries? Media queries are nothing but basically blocks of code in CSS which we only want to run when the height or the width or any condition that we apply is smaller than the actual thing that we have. Okay, so for example, this is how the media query looks like. I have already done this, so you can see it here. So we are going to start with the nav part. I'm just going to show you the nav part first. How do we want this, right? So here we have only one text, right? We only have browse here. So you can see that all of the other things are not there. Even the icon here, the bottom icon here is not given on the tablets or normal phones. And only browse is given here and the Netflix logo is here. So how we do that is we can close this off first and we can go here. Now what I want is in the left part I want another div class. What I want is this should be a nav item, right? And yeah, so nav item, and this is going to be the small. Whenever the small screen is running, I only wanted to show it at that time, right? So by default it should have a display of none. I can have it here, and also whenever it is going to be shown, it should have the font size of 2rem, 2VW, and by default the display should be none. It should not be shown on normal screen. So if I open this up, you won't be able to see the browse anywhere here because I have done the display of none, right? Now whenever the size of the page is less than 800 pixels, now ideally what happens is whenever you want to show it on a small screen, you choose a certain width, and whenever the style is below that, you tend to show that, like you tend to style it accordingly, right? Style it for the tablet, style it for the phone. But what I prefer is, what I have found out is, whenever you give it a styling of less than 800 pixels, it works fine. 800 pixels is enough for iPads, it is enough for tablets, it is enough for phones, because what happens is I want the same layout on phones, tablets, and every other handheld device, and I want a separate layout on the computers. So I always choose the media query as 800px. So what I'll do is I'll just write media here with the max width. Whenever the width is maximum at 800px, which means it is always smaller than 800px, only then the style that I write inside of this will be applied. Okay, so firstly what I want is I want the small to be visible. So what I'll do is I'll just give it a display of block, and also yeah, so you can see the browse part is now being shown, but all of these are also being shown, right? Also I need the browse to have a margin left of 2VW, so that there is some space there. Now you can see I have this browse here, but all of these are being shown. Now I want all of these to be hidden when I am below 800px. So whenever I'm below 800px, I want the nav items to be hidden. So I can give them a display of none. So these are hidden whenever I go below 800px, and whenever I'm above 800px, you can see that they come, and the small part goes away. You can see this is working properly, and I can add this margin left here so that it only like shows in a smaller part. You don't have to change all the properties. You can only change the properties that you actually want to change here. Okay, so you can see it is working properly, right? Also, I want to hide this part. How do I hide this? I can give it a class of .hide, and I can give it a display of none here, and height can be display of block whenever it is normally. Whenever normally on bigger screens it can have a display of block, and whenever I am below 800px I can have a display of none, so that it is not shown on the screen. So how do I do that? I can give that class, just close this off. I can give the class to the item that I want to hide. So I can give it a class name of height. So let's see now. As you can see, this should be hidden now properly. Okay, so it is above 800 to 815. As you can see, if I make this below 800, so you can see this is also gone and the nav items are also gone. So this is how we use media queries, and this is how we have fixed our nav bar, right? In the similar way, we want to fix all of the parts. We want to make the top section, we want to make the content parts, we want to change the footer and everything, right? For now, we have just changed the nav bar. The next file that we have is, the next part that we are going to move on to is the top part, the top.css part. So for this, since we want exact values in everything, again I'm just writing media queries. Whenever you write media queries, just try to use the same max width part that you are using anywhere. Just try to have the same part, because it makes the code more consistent, makes it easier to write, makes it easier to debug. That is why I prefer to always write the media queries at the end and have them properly like this. So I'll just get the exact values from here only. We are done with the the nav part. Now we need the top part. In the top part, what we want is the top should have a height of 80 VW. Earlier it was 56 VW, if you recall, 56.25. Now it is 80 VW, because we wanted to, because phones and tablets have a bigger size, bigger screen size, bigger orientation. They are in a portrait orientation, so we want the height to be bigger. As you can see, the height is bigger now, right? And again, in the similar way, I want the billboard to also be like more above than it was earlier. So I'm giving it a height of bottom of 45% instead of whatever we had earlier. The top of content row, earlier it had the padding of 43%. I want this to have a padding of 50% so that it is a bit down. I can give it here. And in a similar way, for the play button, I can give it a font size of 3 VW so that it is a bit larger. If you want, you don't have to do that. This is a bit larger here. I don't want it to be so much larger. So what I'll do is, I'll just give it a font size of 2 VW. This seems fine, right? And I don't even need to give it to the eye. I can just give it to the whole part, or even not even this. I can just give it to the button in general. As you can see, the buttons are big now, and I am like, this looks very good. This looks better than what it was before, and it looks exactly like the one we are creating. Also, for index.css, since the title and description are there, I can change this. The font size will be a bit bigger, description also will be a bit bigger. So since there are smaller screens, right, so it is difficult to see smaller text. So we just increase the font size so that it is clearly visible. So I can go here and I can just paste it in index.css. Right, the max width 800 part, as you can see, 800 part is always working. So we fix the top part. Now you can see the top part is also working fine. The top part looks good. As you can see, it is looking good on every kind of screen, right? This is how Netflix also looks with this image part, so you don't have to worry about that. It is fine. On the tablet, it is perfect. Now we are going to take a look at the you might like section, the content row. So what we'll do is we'll go to the content row part, and we are going to change the media query again. Media query max width. We can write 800px here, and we can write the actual thing that we want. Now we can go to content row to see what the actual styling should be, and we can see the content should have a margin right. Wait a second, dot content here should have a margin right whenever we are below 800 page to be 0, right? And the width here should be 50% of the screen, so that it is a bit bigger and we can easily see what is happening on the screen. As you can see, it is looking very good now. It looks perfect now, basically. So it is what we want to look. We want it to look like. As you can see, this is working perfectly. This is even how Netflix looks like. And the last part we want is the footer. We want to modify the footer. Again, we are going to go here and write add the media. What is the thing that we want to modify? Max width 800px. That means above 800px, the styling should be the styling that we have by default. And whenever we go below 800px, the styling should be the one that we actually have there, right? The styling that is obviously applied in this specific curly brackets. So we can check again the exact values in the code that I've already written. The footer should have a margin top. Footer normally should have a margin top of 40px. It is different, so that it is less than that, and I can just copy all of these properties and we can just discuss them here only. So social icons have a margin bottom of 1 rem. These should have a bottom of 1 rem. Social icons here, by default font size is 1 VW. I do not like that. I think it is smaller, so I'm just going to give it 2. I can cancel this. You can see it is getting bigger, and I can keep the scale as 1.5. Okay, so now you can see as scale is 1.5, I don't have to write it again here. I've already written the scale as 1.5 here, right? The scale here is 1.5, so I don't have to write it again and again. I can remove it from here, and by default only it will be 1.5. Okay, so margin right is 5 peak, so I have changed the margin right, and the flex basis part for the footer link is 50% instead of 25, because they were taking 4 times earlier, right? There were 4 columns, now there are 2 columns. I've taken, each of them takes a 50% of the area. Margin bottom for them is 10 pixels for each of them, and the font size for them is 3BW. Now the font size is bigger for them, right? So the footer also looks better on every screen. This is the phone screen. Phone also looks good. The tablet also looks good, and the laptop obviously already looked good. So this is what we have done, and this is what the whole Netflix part is. The last part that is left is to add this icon and to add the meta tag if you want. Now what meta tags do are, meta tags are used for SEO enhancement, and basically search engine optimization. SEO basically means search engine optimization. What happens is whenever you post your website on Google, there are some web crawlers that go through your website and check what the content of the website is, right? So you need to tell the web crawlers or tell the people, like whenever you visit any result, for example, I want to go to search something, right? I just write search, and you can see these are multiple things, right? Now this thing is known as the title of the page. We have already added the title of the page, right? We can add the description of the page here, or whatever we want to add, we can add here, so that it can actually be shown into Google and people can see that and select the results upon that. We can add keywords, we can add description, we can add anything that we want. So how do we do that is, you can just add a meta tag here. You can add a meta tag with the name of, for example, if you want the name to be description. You have multiple meta tags for Facebook, for Twitter, and for multiple other websites. You can use them if you want. For that, what you can do is you can do meta tags list. You can just Google it, open the first list, and you can see this part has a complete list of multiple meta tags that are there. You can use all of them. You can use any one of them that you like if you want to show any one of them. But it's better to, like, you can just copy and edit your data into that, so you don't have to remember all of them, but I'm just showing you how to use them. So you can add content here to be this is a clone of Netflix. So this will whenever the description of your website is needed, this will automatically added here. For example, if you try to send this on WhatsApp, or if you try to send this on LinkedIn, or anywhere you try to do that, this description will be shown automatically. Okay, so this is what meta tags do. Similarly, we can have a meta tag for an icon, right? And we can have a type, or actually we do not need a meta tag for that. We can just add a link. This type is going to be the X icon, right? And the href is going to be, what kind of icon is it going to be? This is the favicon icon. Favicon icon is this icon. So I'm just going to add it here. The href is going to be assets/images/favicon.ic. I did this link, but this isn't visible. I think I have changed the link. I've changed the type property, so you can see hell icon, right? Type is image/x icon. So instead of just x icon, I just have to write image/x icon, and I have to add a relation here since that is an icon of the page. Now you can see that is also there. So this is how we can add our favicon, and our whole Netflix clone is done. In the next video, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of whatever we did in the code, whatever we did in the course, and yeah. But mostly you are done with the course. You are done with the Netflix clone. I hope you had fun and you learned something. So if you're watching this video, you are done with the whole thing. You are done with the whole website. So congratulations for you on that. You have successfully created the Netflix clone. We have created everything from this animation through JavaScript, this navbar, this top section with this linear gradient using the background image property of linear gradient in CSS, and then we used the Z index property to create this billboard. We created these buttons, created the effects in using the pseudo elements, pseudo tags. Then we created this content row, used the display of inline block to create the row and a slider. We created multiple of one of these. You can copy and paste the data you want. You can personalize it. You can add more of the content. You can do anything that you want. Then we created this SVG parts. You can also create these. You can add multiple a number of top 10 TV shows in the world today, or anything that you want to create. Then we also created the footer part. This footer part was basically just the same as the above parts, using the same components, the display of flex, column, and flex wrap. We use flex wrap here so that they automatically align themselves in a column, even though it is a display of flex and a flex direction of column. And yeah, then we finally what we did was we just converted this to we just made this responsive so that it is good looking on smaller screen. For example, iPads, tabs, all kinds of tablets, all kinds of phone. So you can see that this is still working, still fine, still perfect. All of these buttons work, all of this text works, everything works. If you want, you can personalize this. This is made by me part. You can personalize this. You can, if you want, you can write your own name. You can write your company's name. You can write anything that you want. So this is what we created in this video. This exactly looks like Netflix. This is basically the exact clone of Netflix using HTML and CSS. So this was a big task. Congratulations for completing this. I hope you learned something new in this course. And thank you for watching.